Recording in progress. We are also streaming live on the official Facebook page of Bicol University. This year's theme is sustaining the culture of excellence in research and development amidst the pandemic. To start with, we shall have the Philippine National Anthem to be followed by the invocation.
Bayang magiliw, perlas ng silangan, nananag ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa manlulupig, di ka pasisilip. Sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mabaga, may nilagang tulad, awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kislap ng matawat mo'y tagumpay na naglilinig. Ang bituin na tara niya, kailan pa may magdidilim. Lupa ng harangan, bakit pagsinta mo'y langit sa piling mo? Aming ligaya na may mga apil, mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Lord, thank you for this day, for the presence of everyone in this call. For once again, we are gathered and given the opportunity to appreciate life and your words. Forgive us for our shortcomings and cleanse our hearts as we learn and live your words and example. Father, bless our endeavors, especially today's meeting. May you guide us in our discussions, and may you enlighten our minds in every decision that we make. Give us your grace that we may effectively do our parts for your greater glory. All this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Once again, good afternoon, everyone. To give us the opening message, we call on Dr. Luis O. Amano, the Vice President for Research, Development, and Extension of Bicol University.
Thank you very much, Sir Grimes. To our beloved University President, Dr. Arnulfo M. Mascareñas, Professor Ronel R. Juneda, Senior Director of the Research Development and Management Division, Dr. Herbert Rosana, Dean of the BU Graduate School, Directors of the different centers and divisions of the Office of the Vice President for Research, Development, and Extension, hardworking research coordinators, student researchers, faculty advisors, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome to the 16th Student R&D Forum. Unfortunately, the circumstances are very different this year and in the previous year. But we're still happy that we have our students present their researches through virtual platform. Research that matters is a knowledge in action. Engaging our students in research, innovation, and scholarship is the landmark of great university like the Bicol University. Through their participation in research and creative endeavors, undergraduate as well as graduate students become better thinkers, innovators, and problem solvers, cultivating depth of understanding needed to make positive difference in this world. Within our university, your researchers are infused with the knowledge you obtain from your advisors as well as your teachers. This creates experiential education opportunities that enrich you and provides transferable skills that makes you more competitive in the job market. Your researchers advance the discipline of your faculty members and place them at the forefront of their field. In the coming years, we look forward for a more active participation from all the colleges of Bicol University. You are now all winners. Congratulations and good day.
Thank you very much, Dr. Amano. We shall now have Dr. Arnulfo M. Mascareñas, President of the Bicol University, to give us an inspirational message. We were told that the president will log in a very short while. So let us please wait for him. While waiting for the president, we would like to acknowledge everyone. We would like to acknowledge the participants who are in the Zoom meeting right now and those who are watching on FB. Thank you for attending the 16th Virtual Students R&D Forum. So after this opening program, we shall have the paper presentations of the BU Graduate School, and tomorrow morning will be the forum for the undergraduate students. That will be until in the afternoon for tomorrow. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Dr. Arnulfo M. Mascareñas.
Thank you very much, Grimil. To our Vice President for Research, Development, and Extension, Dr. Louis Amano. To the Director of the Research and Development Management Division and staff. To our dear students who will be presenting in today's forum. Of course, to their advisors who made this research quite interesting. And to all our guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. As a researcher, I am happy that Bicol University has strengthened its drive to advance and advocate for research that produces new knowledge, new learnings, and new technologies. As I browse several readings on research, I found three particular thoughts which I would want to share to you, not so much to inspire, but to give you some newer or if not a different perspective on viewing research. The first thought came from Neil Armstrong, who searched for the possible and along with the collective efforts of several scientists, found the perfect plot to land on the moon. I suppose you know Neil Armstrong. He's the first man on the moon. And Neil Armstrong said, research is creating new knowledge. Each of us, when venturing into researchable matters, should have this foremost goal to generate new knowledge. Otherwise, if it is merely the same old thing, the same old and tired solution, perhaps you haven't really searched or explored through. From old issues and tired solutions, new knowledge can truly come and create breakthroughs if the research is truly explored in all its various facets. This leads us to the second thought. We can only explore research in all its facets if we will follow what Sarah Horston said, that research is formalized curiosity. It is poking and prying with a purpose. This is why when we do our formalized research, or curiosity for that matter, and poke and pry with a purpose, we need a strong justification as well as a methodology so that our purpose and sense of direction is thorough and uncompromised. I believe that all the researches that will be presented today and that will be competing for an award have certainly passed these two important processes today. I firmly believe that the researchers worthy of competing today in our prestigious Student R&D Forum, or BUBOT, have generated new knowledge as a result of formalized curiosity through poking and prying with a purpose. Third, it would be good to keep our sense of balance and humor when we do research. We will make mistakes, of course. We will be confused. We might even end up in a dead-end situation at a loss for explanation. What do we do then if that happens? We need to remember Albert Einstein, that ultimate researcher. Albert Einstein said, if we knew what we were doing, it wouldn't be called research. Isn't it? At the end of the day, we need to keep a sense of balance and a dose of humor by simply remembering that our knowledge is not infinite and only the Supreme Being, whom we call God, has the tremendous capacity to know every inch of mystery in the universe. The presence of the divine is something even Albert Einstein never denied. May we do the same in all our undertakings, my dear students. Congratulations to the researchers and faculty advisors for having reached this far. You may not win the award, but just be selected to present your research in this forum. You become a winner already. God bless everyone, and advance Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. So while Dr. Mascareñas is still here, we shall have a photo opportunity. Please turn on your cameras. Sir Joseph will take the photo. Sir Joseph.
Good afternoon po. We only have one panel to take photo of. May I request everyone again to please turn on their camera. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and smile. Please hold that smile. 1, 2, and. Okay, sir, thank you.
Nagana ako, Jay, baga kayo live. bilang nangisi si CJ, kaya live na kasi CJ ah.
Thank you, sir. Salamat.
Okay.
Yes. So,
Thank you, sir,
so
President.
now, again, thank you, Mr. President. Now we will have the introduction of the panel of evaluators and briefing on the mechanics by Professor Angelo P. Candelaria. And this will be followed immediately by the paper presentations from the BU Graduate School. Sir Angie.
Good afternoon. For the graduate level, we have invited 3 esteemed panel of evaluators. And to introduce them, we have Dr. Maria Teresa de Alban, the Chief Education Program Specialist of CHED Regional Office 5. We have also Dr. Rebecca Rosario Bercasio, our very own director of the Center for Teaching Excellence. And the third one, we have Professor Carlos Cortez Jr., the Special Projects Officer of Bicol University. Now for the criteria for evaluation of papers. So each entry shall be given 10 minutes to present the paper, and we will also allot 5 minutes for critiquing, and the time management for this forum shall be strictly enforced. So the papers will be evaluated based on the following criteria adopted from the PICAARD Best R&D Award flyer. So for the research category, we will only have the research category for the graduate level. This is the criteria: significant findings covering contribution to new knowledge on S&T advancement. We have 30 points. Another still under significance of findings, relevance to regional or national development, another 30 points, totaling to 60 points for the significance of findings. And for the manuscript write-up, creativity, originality, and quality of work, rationale, for the state of the art, objective, that will be 7 points. And then objectives, for the objectives, we have 3 points. For the conceptual analytical framework and methodology, we have another 10 points. For accuracy of figures and language, we have 4 points. Clarity and style, we have allotted 3 points. And cogency and logic, 3 points. And totaling to 30 points for the manuscript writer. And for the presentation, we have for the clarity of presentation, stage presence, voice modulation, and response to inquiries of the panel, we have 10 points. And totaling to 100 points for this criteria. So for the development category,
In
this will
that case, the rest of the writing to
a paper which obtained the highest
Well,
rating in a
that
particular
case,
category will
then
be
was-
adjudged as the best paper, provided the rating is at least 85 points. To review and evaluate the paper entries, 8 sets of evaluation panels shall be organized, one for each thematic area. The panels will evaluate both research and development categories. So since the turnout of the papers, we have clustered the panels, and this will be all for tomorrow. Although for today, for this afternoon's breakout sessions, we will only have 3 papers for the graduate level. A moderator or facilitator and rapporteur from the BURDMD and selected colleges units of the university will be assigned per session. And certificates of participation shall be given to all paper presenters. For the thesis and dissertation advisors of paper presenters shall also be given a certificate of commendation. And the best paper winners shall receive a cash incentive of 2,000, while the first and second runner-ups will receive a cash incentive of 1,500 and 1,000 respectively. That would be all. Thank you and good afternoon.
Okay, once again, good afternoon, everyone. I am Joseph Martin Paet, and I will be the moderator for the for the 3 paper presentations from the graduate school. So, just a short reminder before we start our paper presentation. Please be reminded of the following house rules. All participants will be muted in the entirety of the conference. Whenever joining the preferred breakout session or sessions, please keep your microphone in mute mode to avoid unnecessary sounds that may disturb the ongoing presentations. You may unmute your mic upon recognition of the moderator. Second, attendees may opt to turn off their videos, while presenters, when called upon to answer, are requested to turn it on. Everyone is encouraged to turn on their videos during photo documentation. Third, please observe proper chat etiquette. Avoid using capital letters and vulgar words in the chat box. Only post questions or comments relevant to the current topic. Please identify the presenter you want to ask, and then the moderator will attend to your questions during the open forum. Presentation of competing papers will be done in one batch, all 3 paper presentations from the graduate school. After one presentation is presented, after a 10 to 15 minute presentation, an open forum will immediately follow. Questions and comments from the evaluators will be prioritized, as this section forms part of the criteria for judging. And lastly, enjoy the presentations.
Sir Joseph.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to our participants. As we shift now to the presentation of papers starting from the graduate schools, we only have 3 papers slated for graduate level. So as the sponsoring office for this 16 student R&D forum, we will be giving the authority to the panel of evaluators to modify the 5 minutes ruling of time duration for presentation and question and answer portion respectively. And we have that luxury of time. We can do that this time because we only have 3 pipeline researches, and it's up to the evaluators to modify those. We're giving them the authority to modify, to make the most of the time and the opportunity of these very good 3 papers that survived the pandemic slated for this afternoon's activity. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for the clarifications, Director Juneda. So again, the panel of evaluators are given the option or the decision to extend the presentation of the different papers, and also if they have further clarifications or questions to really maximize the time that we have this afternoon. So to start the different presentations, we have the first paper from Florid J. Naval Medina. He is going to present his master's thesis with the title, The Sustainability of the Best Practices in the Implementation of the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000 in Legazpi City, an assessment. May I call in Sir Medina?
Thank you so much, Sir Joseph. And of course, good afternoon, everybody, especially to our Vice President for Research, Development and Extension, Sir Luis Amano, and of course to our BU R&D, Sir Ronel Juneda, especially to our Dean of the Graduate School, Dr. Herbert B. Rosana, and of course to our BU President, Arnulfo Mascareñas, and for everybody kung saan po ko galing sa Bicol University, Open University, headed by our Dean, none other than Sir, of course, our Dean for this afternoon, and especially to my fellow BU, OU students and everyone, good afternoon. So as of this moment, I'm going to discuss, and I am really shocked actually, that I will be the first one to present for this afternoon. But I am very glad that right now, I will share to you everything that I have learned despite of the pandemic. I come up with this kind of a study. So let's start. Okay, once again, good afternoon. So my study is entitled The Sustainability of the Best Practices in the Implementation of the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000 in the city or in Legazpi City, an assessment. So for the information of everybody, my study is already copyright registered at the National Library of the Philippines since September 2021. Let's start with the first slide. So about this study aimed to validate and showcase the sustainability of the best practices in the city of Legazpi in implementing the ESWM, or the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000, and endeavored to come up with a set of practices which the study can contribute to other cities, municipalities, and provinces. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, we accept the fact, or we need to accept the fact that hindi naman po lahat ng LGUs ay nakakapag-practice pa po very well nitong ating Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000. So with this study, naisipan natin na magbigay ng mga recommendation, and at the same time, maibigay ko din po kung ano yung mga best practices na pwede pong ma-adopt ng iba't ibang LGUs pa po, not just only in the province of Albay, but also in other municipalities and cities in the Bicol region, and as well as in the whole country. So why ecological solid waste management topic? So for me, it is a global issue that needs immediate and collective action from all the sector of the government. The major responsibilities on the rest of the LGUs as lead implementers of a national law like RA 9003 as mandated in the local government code. So in other words, ladies and gentlemen, with or without pandemic, talagang kailangan pagtuunan po ng pansin itong ecological solid waste management topic. And of course, especially the RA 9003. So the RA 9003, otherwise known as the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000, is considered as a landmark environmental legislation in the country. So the ESWM of 2000 or RA 9003, to give you the brief background about this law, this is the act providing for an ecological waste management program, creating the necessary institutional mechanism and incentives, declaring certain acts prohibited, and of course, providing the appropriating funds, therefore, for other purposes. Ecological solid waste management, it also the ESWM refers to systematic administration of activities which provide for segregation of source, segregated transport, storage, transfer, processing, treatment, and disposal of solid waste, and all others waste management activities which do not harm the environment. Just to give you a short background about Legazpi City, so last June 24, 2001, or 2011 rather, a sanitary landfill in Barangay Bangkeroan was inaugurated, and it is worth 41.8 million pesos. And the city had received a grant of 1.7 million euros, or in conversion of 101 million pesos from the Agencia Española de Cooperación Internacional para el Desarrollo, or ACID, to be used for its solid waste management program. And the city passed and approved the City Ordinance 0017-2009 on December 23, 2009, providing for an integrated ecological solid waste management. And lastly, Legazpi City is the only local government unit in Bicol that has so far constructed a modern sanitary landfill facility in compliance with the RA 9003 according to the Philippine Information Agency. And aside from that, the Legazpi City has a total hectares or land area of 16,165.73. And it has 70 villages or barangay, 45 urban, and 25 rural. And according to the 2020 census, the total population of the city has reached to the 209,533. And just to give you also the short trivia, the Legazpi City is a former barangay na ang tawag po ay Sawangan. And the tagline of the city of Legazpi in terms of tourism is the city of fun and adventure. So let's proceed with the research method. This study is a qualitative research that focuses on broader research questions. It involves collecting large amounts of data from a small number of participants and analyzing the data from non-statistically. And the study made use of triangulation method through the following techniques. Number one, the documentary analysis from the LGU Legazpi through the CENRO, or the City Environment and Natural Resources Office. Also, from the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, doon po sa kanilang isang agency, which is the Environmental Management Bureau, or EMB. Second, the key informant interview from the local officials of the city, also the officials from the national level down to the barangay level. And because we have to know the problem, doon po mismo sa pinaka-grassroots level, which is doon sa pinaka-bababa, which is the barangay, and other stakeholders and business establishment. And lastly, the participant observation. Of course, we visited the sanitary landfill or facility, or SLF, in Bangkeroan, and the material recovery facility in the selected barangay of Legazpi City and their practices. The statement of the problem, ladies and gentlemen, this study assessed the sustainability of the best practices of the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000 of the City of Legazpi and recommended measures to improve the implementation of RA 9003. So we have the sub-problems. Number one, what is the status of the implementation of RA 9003 in Legazpi City in terms of the important components. We have the segregation, collection, transport, storage, treatment, recovery, disposal of solid waste. Number 2, what are the best practices along the mentioned or identified six components? Number 3, what are the challenges encountered along also to the identified 6 components? Number 4, what are the measures introduced to solve the challenges encountered? And number 5, what recommendation may be proposed to sustain the operation of the best practices in the implementation of RA 9003 in Legazpi City? So we have now the findings, ladies and gentlemen. The study showed that the 6 components of RA 9003 were implemented and adopted by 87% of the barangays of Legazpi City. And aside from that, the best practices along the identified 6 components were as follows. Number 1, policy implementation on no segregation, no collection. Number 2, the strict observance of the schedule and routes on the collection. Number 3, use of appropriate vehicles for transport. Number 4, of course, the operation of the MRF drop-off centers and storage treatment. Number 5, strengthened recycling. And last, the proper disposal of this waste and the sanitary landfill facility. And also, we have the challenges. So, ang naging findings natin dito, the full segregation of waste of all barangays, maintenance of facilities, vehicles, and IEC promotional activities, and sustainable activities. And also, the measures that we will introduce to solve the challenges is to strengthen the IEC, more trainings, and of course, more funding support. A strict implementation of the policy, be consistent, and of course, the issuance of citation tickets and penalty imposition. And of course, the EcoAIDS operation, because for me, talagang we also consider them as the frontliners despite of these trying times because sila po yung nagbabahay-bahay para makakuha or kunin yung mga basura in every household. And last, strengthening and maintenance of facilities and equipment. So with that, we have also the recommendation proposed. Number 1, strict implementation of no segregation, no collection policy. Number 2, setting up relay transfer station. Number 3, maintenance of trucks, replatted of old ones to new ones. And number 4, MRF must be done through public-private partnership para hindi naman po siya nasisira basta-basta agad-agad. And last, disinfection of waste shall be made on a regular basis, especially on infectious waste in hospital. Number 6, enhanced recycling for livelihood and given more focus. And number 7, allocation of cell waste shall be given focus. Number 8, an allocation of funds must be done to sustain the effective operation and functionality of ESWM program. So based on those findings, the following conclusion are the following. First, while the status of the implementation of ESWM Act in Legazpi City is generally high, impressive, it is still not very close to the desired ideal model. Because sabi ko nga po kanina, 87%, almost there, but still much better kung mas mataas pa rin po ang percentage natin. Number 2, there are practices in the solid waste management of the city that are worth emulating by other localities, and these best practices showcase strong discipline in the community management and adherence to clean environment advocacy. And number 3, existing challenges encountered in the solid waste management in the city do not necessarily pose as serious roadblocks to sustaining the gains achieved by the locality and its effect to promote the clean environment. And number 4, the measures introduced to meet the challenges encountered are basically simple but require persistence, patience, and diligence. Number 5, sustaining the gains and narrowing the gap between the actual and ideal solid waste management in the city could be addressed by continuously placing the issue at the academic spotlight. So we have now here to our recommendation. So those conclusion, the following recommendation. Number 1, implementation of RE 9003 in Legazpi City through its ordinance number 0017-2009 in terms of 6 components should be strictly implemented, especially doon po sa 13% pa ng ating mga barangays. And number 2, best practices identified should be showcased by all barangays for a more effective implementation of ESWM program. Number 3, the challenges encountered must be dealt with the LGU, Legazpi, and the different barangay through the adaptation of the strategies, same and likewise enhance the implementation of ESWM. Number 4, the LGU, Legazpi, and the concerned barangays should be able to adopt the identified measure in this study. Number 5, the researcher be provided the opportunity by the concerned LGU to articulate the results and recommendation of the study in the appropriate forum. So now, as you can see on our screen, ito po yung ating mga iba't ibang klase ng strategy ng ating mga barangays on how they will do the recycling process. So we have here in Barangay Dapdap near the, of course, the Sawangan Park. Also in Barangay Peñaranda, almost at the center or center ng Legazpi. Also from the office of the OCNR. And also I visited the following, the sanitary landfill facility located in Barangay Bangkerohan. Also the Clean and Green program and how they do it doon po sa Barangay Dapdap. And also in Barangay Peñaranda. At syempre po, para po makita natin na talagang they give more focus, nakita po natin na talagang binibigyan po ng iba't ibang klase ng mga equipments, lalong-lalo na po nitong ating mga trucks, tricycle, itong ating mga eco-aids, ito po mga street sweeper, and at the same time, nakikita din natin yung proper process po ng ginagawa sa sanitary landfill through the transport of waste. So thank you and Diyos mabalos po sa inyong lapos. That's all.
Thank you very much, Sir Medina, for your presentation. Now let's invite our panel of evaluators, Ma'am Di Alban, Ma'am Bercasio, and Sir Cortez for their questions.
Hello. Good afternoon, Sir Jay. Thank you for that very comprehensive presentation about your research. Okay. Since when this RA implemented in Legazpi City?
Ma'am, 2009 po.
2009. So, practically, if you are going to count 2009 up to this moment, how many years?
From 2009 to 2021, I guess it is already nasa 11 years.
11 years. Okay. Based on your recommendation, okay, you mentioned there were challenges experienced, no? Now my question now is, what is the status now as of today, 2021, most especially the financial allocation for the sustainability of the project?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that question po. So the status of that, especially to the funding, as per I talked to the OCNR head and of course to the mayor and at the same time to the councilor with the chairmanship of the environment, talaga pong hindi po nila inaalis at kinakaltasan at dinadagdagan pa po nila yung allocation of funds for this dahil ito po ay napaka-importante at ito po ay usually na talaga pinupuntahan ng iba't ibang LGU para magkaroon po ng tinatawag nila na emulating to adopt everything that they want to know about this kind of RA 9003 practices in the city of Legazpi. And when it comes to the funding, there's no problem, ma'am, because talaga po usually malaki po ang ililalagay. But I don't have any data kung magkano po usually po ang nilalagay ng city government for this kind of initiative or this process or this RA 9003 in the city.
Okay. Thank you for that, sir. But one thing is sure, if there is a sustained funding, therefore, we will expect that the operation will also be sustained, right?
Yes.
Okay. But in your presentation, I noticed that I don't know kasi mabilis, hindi ko. 13% of the barangay. Tama po ba ako?
Yes, ma'am. Correct.
13% only? How about the other barangays?
Ano, ma'am, the 13% po, yun po yung hindi pa po nakakapag-practice ng maayos.
Okay.
As far as I research, only the 87% of the 70 barangays of Legazpi City ang nakakapag-practice po ng maayos dito po sa RA 9003.
Okay. That was during the time that this 2009 this ordinance, right? There is an
Yes.
ordinance, no? Approved, and then sa tingin mo, sir, if I will ask you, going back to that 387 barangay only, considering how many years, 9, kung tama ako, sa palagay mo, coverage na ba kasama ng lahat ng barangay?
Again, ma'am, ibig sabihin po for the 9 years na nag-existing
Yeah,
na
9
po,
years.
na nag-existing na po yung RA or nung 0017-2009.
Yeah.
Opo. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Talaga pong covered na rin po 'yon. Although, ma'am, talagang mahirap din po kasi may mga other barangays po na sobrang layo na po talaga sa sentro.
Okay.
Kaya po hindi po agad-agad nabibigyan ng action. Katulad na rin po, ma'am, to give you one barangay that very far from the city is the Barangay Cagbakong in Legazpi. And Barangay Cagbakong is the last barangay and it is the boundary of Castilla, Sorsogon in the Legazpi City, Albay. So, yan po yung isa sa mga hindi pa po masyado nakakapag-practice. Although, as far as I research din naman po, they are doing their very best. The barangay official are doing their very best na makahabol po upang mawala po yung 13% ng natitira pa po na barangay na hindi nakakapag-practice na maayos.
Okay, sir. One last question, sir.
Yes.
Considering the title of your study, Sustainability and Assessment, okay, how will you assure us so that is really completely serve the purpose that there will be really a sustainability in the implementation of this? How? As the proponent of this?
Yes, ma'am. Because of the funding na binigay po ng Spanish government and with, of course, the parang memorandum of agreement, there is really a sustainable funding with this, sustainable practices. And with this, I think ang kailangan na lang po natin is consistency, siguro, and at the same time, political will para po talaga magkaroon ng sustainability. At talaga po, in the near future, I'll be back. In the next 5 years, I'll be back and reassess kung kamusta na po ang 87% ng City of Legazpi with this ESWF. And also, ma'am, with the sustainability po na process, bala ko din po itong ibigay sa other LGUs na hindi pa po masyado nakakapag-practice ng ganitong klase ng law. That's all.
That's a very good plan. You know, if I can still recall, according to former chairperson of CHED who happened to me, cousin of my husband, Dr. Esther Garcia Albano Garcia, she told me during our reunion that there should be strengthening research utilization. So, to make the research useful, kailangan talaga i-implement completely.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
yan. So, I'm very happy for that kasi the title is sustainability. Dapat talaga i-put into action all these things.
Yes.
Para
And actually, ma'am, to butt in, ma'am po, pasensya na, ma'am, yung municipality of Libon, they are the first municipality to ask for the copy of this study. And we'll bring it to the Sangguniang or to the Sangguniang Bayan of the municipality of Libon to turn over formally para po kahit papaano meron na po silang references kung paano po ginagawa ng Legazpi ito.
Kasi very good, the first thing is come up with an ordinance. So there is a legal basis for that. Kasi
Yes,
pag walang legal basis, no matter how beautiful is your suggestion, your recommendation, now, mahirap yon. But because
agree.
may ordinance, then, sana across administration yung ordinance. Ano, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Across
Opo.
administration. Thank you and
Political
thank you
will lang talaga po, ma'am.
Kaya
ang
po,
katapat lang
very
dito.
good kasi ang study mo, very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you
ma'am.
very much, Ma'am D. Alban. We also have a question from Professor Cortez. Yes, sir.
Hello, good afternoon. First, I would like to ask the presenter, what are your measures of sustainability? Kasi sabi mo is you assess the sustainability. Ano yung mga measures of sustainability mo in terms of the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000? What are your measures of sustainability?
Sorry, sir, no, but I believe that when it comes to the sustainability, I think doon talaga po ako pupunta mismo doon sa funding, and at the same time the practices of the local officials in the city of Legazpi when it comes to this implementation of Ecological Solid Waste Management Act.
Kasi ganito, there are actually stated measures of sustainability.
Yes.
Una is economic. Economic, it means how to sustain the economic efficiency of the program. So, meron ba siyang fund? Will Legazpi City depend only on the fund provided? Pag nawala na yun, paano na? So, how do you measure sustainability? So, isa yun, Pangalawa ay environmental. And lastly, of course, the social component. So do we have a written policy, and of the written policy, ilang percent yung compliance? You have reported that 87% adopted the ESWM. However, you do not determine how many of the household or this barangay are compliant. Sinasabi natin na they are adopted, but pag binalikan natin yung natin, kasi sabi mo meron kang document analysis, pinapakita, iba kasi yung adoption, tsaka iba yung compliant. Ilang household o ilang barangay talaga ang merong segregation facility o nagsisegregate. So hindi yun maliwanag doon sa data mo. So in terms of the status, titingnan natin sa segregations, ano yung mga policy meron. So unang kailangan natin i-prove mo with your study is, ano mga municipal ordinances that is related to Ecological Solid Waste Management Act? Meron bang ilakalagay na ordinances na ang each household ay pwedeng magbayad for sustainability of the program? Isa yun, for economic. Pangalawa, yung collection schedules are the people or the barangays amenable to the collection schedule. Yung like, ilan trips ba isang araw, ilan ang karga niya, saan ang trip niya, and so on. So it's a good measures na makikita natin siya. It's part of the practices actually. Then since present mo yung mga equipment na ginagamit nila, that's also a good measures of sustainability. Ibig sabihin, may mga ganitong facilities ang Legazpi City na hindi comparable to ibang LGUs, wala silang ganon. Plus of course, ang Legazpi City pa lang yata ang mayroong sanitary landfill. Sa Albay, Then how many MRF meron tayo? Kasi measure din yun ng sustainability. It's part actually of the status na pinipresent mo na hinahanap ko sana dun sa report mo. Then you do not have in terms of the methodology, you said meron kang KI. Ilang tao ba yung tinanong mo? Sino yung mga tinanong mo? And how reliable and can we validate their answers are correct? Di ba? I am kasi a member of the REC o the Regional Ecological Center ng EMB. So may kasama ako nung DENR team who actually assess the ESWM in Bicol region. So kaya ganun may mga data. And take note na pag inuna natin yung mga may pababa siya, mas prepare nila magtapon kaysa mag-segregate sa level nila. Sinasabi kasi ng ESWM na ang backbone for sustainability ng law na to ay segregation at source. So hindi yun ang maganda mapakita mo at may present mo sa table mo ano yung mga good practices meron ang Legazpi. Kasi halimbawa sa Marikina, if you're going to Marikina, ang sa Marikina, merong pera sa basura na kung saan yung mga bata, yung basura na recyclable sa bahay nila, dinala na nila sa school. Makikita mo yan if you go to Marikina, SWM, yung mga recyclable sa bahay like plastics, tin cans, dinadala ng bata sa eskwelahan at merong namimili sa eskwelahan. So that's a sustainable way para sa kanila. Sabi nila, with that practice, nami-minimize nila ng 30 to about 50% yung waste na tinatapon nila. Kasi nasi-segregate. I mean, na-institutionalize na siya within the municipality, within the practice of the household. And that's a good measure of sustainability of the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act. So ganun lang naman yung mga nakita ko na kailangan mong possibly ma-improve dun sa write-up mo kung pinapa-analyze mo pa siya. Sige, thank you very much.
Thank you for the input, sir. Salamat, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Cortez. Now we also have questions from Ma'am Bercasio. Ma'am.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. So I'll be the last one to ask question, right? So I can have 3 or more questions or comments.
It's okay, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So I just would like to raise the same issue raised by Professor Cortez regarding sustainability. So there are 3 aspects, at least, of sustainability. The economic sustainability pertains to its being able to be continued at a cost that is affordable or commensurate to its benefits, and or without compromising the financial status of the organization. And the social aspect of sustainability pertains to that in which it can be continued without compromising the ability of the organization to serve other clients in the future or the welfare of other individuals in the future. And of course, as the term directly suggests, the environmental aspect of sustainability pertains to that in which the environmental protection is not compromised. So since the major variable of the study, as captured by the title, is sustainability, I hope this is captured at least in the abstract and in the results and discussion and in the conclusion of the paper. But upon examining the conclusion of the paper that is submitted, there was no discussion of sustainability, because in the conclusion of the paper, we need not present only the final answers to the specific objectives, but we can also highlight the contribution of the study to the discipline or to the field. Now, since the major variable of the study is on sustainability, I would agree with the other panelists that these 3 aspects of sustainability should be covered by the study. Yun po, just to add, because I know this is being recorded as a reference for similar research undertakings in the future. That's why I have to mention that, but that's not yet my question. My question to the researcher, well, of course, thank you for the presentation. How do you define practices, best practices?
Best practices for me, ma'am, is defined, of course, on how they will do good and to be better for others to do it also, or to be a role model or emulate also in their own aspect, or in their own the way they do it also in their house and in their everyday lives and so on.
Yeah, that is noted. Is that the way you defined it in the paper? What do the literature tell us about best practices? Because practices may be in different areas or disciplines. In this case, it is along solid waste management. But we can consult other areas to tell us the basis for saying that something is emerging practice, promising practice, good practice, and best practice. Now, since this, the word best practice is oftentimes used without adequate basis, this discussion is different from other discussions because this is a discussion of research-based information and knowledge. And therefore, I suggest, although this is already completed, but in the paper that you will probably resubmit or revise, there should be basis for saying that something can be considered as best practice. Otherwise, if we say it without proper basis, then that will only be tantamount to opinions of the respondents or the key informants chosen in the study. So if like certain people from different sectors were interviewed to tell the researcher about the best practices, and we take the responses as is, then we consider them as the perceived best practices, perhaps, not the best practices. But please take note that in this study, we did an assessment. So that leads me to my next question, Sir Flored. What assessment model was used to guide in the assessment? I mean, in the honest to goodness assessment, because it is also a key term in the study. Perhaps you can tell us about the assessment model that you used and the theories that guided the researchers in the conduct of this assessment study.
Okay, ma'am. Just give me a second and for me just to see it on my paper for this afternoon. Hold on. Ma'am, again, can you please repeat the question for me to clarify or to answer for this afternoon, please? Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. What assessment model was used for this assessment study?
Yes, ma'am, according to my paper, of course, I use the evaluation theory so that we will assess the policy for me to have the, of course, the delivery of the policy and the objectives of the ordinances. And at the same time, I also assess the way that the public servants, yung kanilang ginagawa pong aksyon for our, of course, katulad ng sinabi po kanina, which is the political will. Also, I evaluate and assess the program objectives. And at the same time po, the reality na nangyayari, of course, to the household, from the household level, up to the sanitary landfill and all the consequences in the community and for other stakeholders. And of course, the practice of everybody, if ito ba ay professional from the local delivery and so on. So ito po yung ginamit natin o ginamit ko po for this study.
Thank you. Mr. Moderator, may I have a follow-up question to the response?
Go ahead, ma'am.
All right, ma'am.
Yes. Thank you for the response. You mentioned about the evaluation theory that guided the researcher. I am just wondering why you did not use evaluation in your title and in your study, but rather you chose assessment.
For me, I believe during that time, I believe that evaluating something is, for me, I'm sorry, but it is also same with the assessment. So that's why instead of the evaluation, I used in assessing, of course, the about the ESWM in the city of Legazpi.
That is noted, Flored, but assessment and evaluation are not exactly the same. Assessment is part of evaluation. I hope that somewhere in the discussion of the theoretical framework, you were able to use evaluation theory, but you are able to discuss adequately why you are only focusing on assessment. And when you responded, you said about policy. By definition, in your study, did you consider policy as part of practice? Because the study focused on the best practices, specifically on sustainable best practices. But when you responded, you mentioned policy. Will that be a part of the definition of practices?
Yes, ma'am. Of course, we cannot practice very well if there's no policy, because I believe that when it comes to action, it is also better to have them the guide. Of course, to determine for them to the future decision or action that they are going to make. Of course, policy is really important with this kind of study.
So with that, with the permission of the moderator, with that, how did you define practices in your study? Practices on ecological solid waste management. What is its conceptual and operational definition? Because it could have been captured regarding policies and practices, but we only opted for practices. And you are saying that by definition, policies are embedded in the practices. So how do we define it for clarity?
Thank you, ma'am. For the practices, ma'am, is to do, to perform often, and of course, customarily and habitually. And in this study, it refers to the activities involved in the implementation of ESWM Act in the city of Legazpi. And aside from that, ma'am, to go back to your previous question about the best practices, I think, ma'am, the best practices terms pertains to, I think, the set of guidelines and ideas that represent, I think, the most efficient and at the same time most effective prudent course of action. So in this study as well, the activities in ecological solid waste management that obtain highest ratings, of course, from the stakeholders constitute the best practices. So I think that's the meaning of those two terms, the best practices and as well the practice.
Yeah, that is noted now. That is, however, not indicated in the paper. Sorry, Sir Cortez, one last more, because this is being recorded just for information and future reference. Sir RRD a while ago said that we can take our time. So I just would like to share with the researcher and perhaps those who are listening right now and who would like to look into practices, we were able to develop a rubric with the following criteria for assessing practices, whether they are emerging practices, promising practices, good practices, and best practices. In most of our studies, we are prudent enough to use good practices rather than best practices, unless we can prove otherwise that these are best. The criteria that we have considered, considering different existing rubrics from different fields, are the following: effectiveness, replicability and adaptability, relevance, social, economic, and environmental sustainability, environmental if applicable, technical feasibility, and we added gender sensitivity or responsiveness to look into practices, whether it is in education, whether it is in governance, or in many different fields. I just would like to share that because we are being recorded and this can be a reference for future researchers. Thank you very much for the responses, for being very open to the questions and suggestions. Thank you,
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Bertasio, for all the inputs po. We also have still another question from Prof. Cortez. Yes, sir.
Hindi siya questions, but instead it's more of clarifications. Assessment is more of measuring the progress of a program or projects. However, evaluation is more of measuring the impact of the projects. So be clear on that. Ano? Kasi yun ang naano ni Ma'am Vicky kanina eh.
No.
Kasi sinasabi mo na It's more of an assessment. So you measure the progress of the project or the
Thank you,
program.
sir.
Thank you. Thank
sir,
you.
for the clarification, sir. Thank you.
Say something. Can I add something, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Okay. Now, while listening, the difference between assessment and best practice, etc., I would like to suggest if you really want to determine at what extent the implementation of this project, maybe I would like to suggest that you can use these areas or parameters, the customer value as to the implementation of this project, the environmental effect, no? Nandyan na yung embracing sa environment, the quality workforce. So, under quality workforce, are you implementing the ASI paradigm, aligning, empowering, creating create the persons who are going to do the task and empower yung training, etc. Responsible management, meron bang leader na capable to do this and to guide? And then, a strong community. What happened to that community after implementing this one? Okay? Yun ang suggestion ko. Of course, yung pillars of sustainability, considering the human, the social, the economic, the environmental, okay? Or parang the planet, the people, and the profits, no? Siguro, if you use this, medyo, you can get everything that you want to evaluate as to the status of the implementation of the program. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much to our panel of evaluators. Thank you very
Sir,
much,
can
sir,
I
for the
say
presentation. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Yes, before we end this this kind of evaluation, I would like to say thank you, Ma'am Bercaso, Sir Cortez, and Ma'am Teresa for the inputs, because this is my first time presenting my paper, and I'll make sure that in my next study, and currently I am taking up my PhD in public administration, to do better. And of course, thank you for the inputs, and I will do better for this next dissertation level. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And now let's proceed to the next study that we have for this afternoon. So this is the work of Mark Glenn L. Tejada with the title Dance and Musical Rendering of Padarao Festival. May I call in Sir Tejada? Sir, you're on mute po. Sir Tejada, you're on mute po, sir.
Yes, Dr. Fu for the latest study.
Okay, I'll try to make your privilege, yes, sir, as co-host. Can you try again, sir, if you can unmute yourself?
Ayan, sir. Thank you so much. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Actually, sir, I just have my final defense last November 15. So this is it. It's a nerve-wracking experience because this thesis is just fresh. It's just like a month ago fresh. So I'm going to present to you my presentation regarding the dance and musical rendering of Padarao Festival. Hold on, sir. Okay, sir. Is it now visible?
Yes, po, sir.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Before I begin, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to the panel of evaluators, and also good afternoon to the Dean of the Bags, Dr. Rosan, and also to our president, Dr. Nolly Mascareñas. Good afternoon, everyone. So this is my study. It's a dance and musical rendering of Padarao Festival. Now, to give an overview, what is the Padarao Festival? Actually, Padarao Festival, it's a celebration of an annual celebration. Usually, it is performed through street dance presentation, and this is the municipality of Bulan has been doing this for like 21 years. Okay, so the background of the study is Bulan is a first-class municipality in the province of Sorsogon. Actually, sir, we are composed of 63 barangays, and approximately we have 105,000 populations. But based on the Municipal Tourism Office, there is no one ventured in a research-based production. So I feel very sad about that because, Bulan is composed of many talented persons, creative persons, however, but none of them or neither one of the citizens or netizens of Bulan Sorsogon ventured in a research-based productions. That's according to the Municipal Tourism Office. And actually, sir, we already have this existing Sangguniang Bayan Resolution number 7. This is authored by a municipal councilor, Sir Elmer Burias, in 2004. And I quoted this in section B, like stating that Padaro Festival is an annual celebration which is choreographed through street dancing presentation. But you know what, ma'am, why is it that I included it as a background of the study? Because I already had the interview with the former Mayor Helen de Castro, who conceptualized the Padaro Festival. And then based from the interview, she mentioned that actually Padaro Festival is a mixed nut kind of presentation. Why I said it's a mixed nut presentation? Because it was conceptualized during their tours on the southern part of the Philippines, particularly in Cebu, in Bacolod. So they have witnessed colorful presentation, and then when they go back to Bulan, they mix it up. So if I know that you already have in mind that Padaro Festival, it's a combination of many festivals. I believe that if you are engaged in so much artistic and creative pursuits, creativity and authenticity really matters. So, and the last one is Batas Pambansa 232, also known as the Education Act of 1982, stating about the preservation of Filipino culture and heritage and developing desirable traditions. While making this study, I was thinking about the end product. So if I have the opportunity to create a dance, an original and culture-based dance and music, then what's next? So, and then it came to a point like correlating it to the DepEd Memorandum number 35, series of 2006, that we are, as a teacher, we are encouraging to have contextualizations of learning, wherein if we have this existing like festival, culture, or anything that is related to the topic, we can incorporate that as long as it is aligned in the learning competency. And I believe that dance and musical rendering can be included in the contextualization of learning, particularly, sir, in music and arts, PE, and health. So for the conceptual paradigm, actually, I have these three. I have the narrative, interpretation, and written literature. So on the narrative, I did the interview, the audio recordings, and video recordings. And for the interpretation, I interpreted the hand and feet movements, and so with the rhythmic and melodic patterns. And after interpretation, I came up with a musical accompaniment or the musical score sheets. It's a maestro copy and a dance literature using a Francisca Reyes Aquino dance notation. So the statement of the problem, what specific head and hand and feet movement may be identified as narrated by the old folks along a fishing-related activity and body movement. It is followed by what music material of Padaro identified in terms of rhythmic pattern and melodic pattern. And the last one is what music and dance materials can be developed for the Padaro Festival so that the Padaro Festival can now have an original, research-based, authentic dance and music that can be of future use. So my research method in design, I use a qualitative approach to design using deductive thematic coding analysis through a creative and structured interview as my main research methodology. Okay, so the participants, since it's a qualitative, so I have the 30 participants. So they are the old folks. So the age bracket is 60 and above. So 6 were fishermen, then 8 were fish vendors, 6 were educators, and 10 were art and culture enthusiasts. So ayan po yung age bracket niya. They have 7, 6 years old, 9 composed of 60 years old is composed of 9 participants, and 1 60 years old, 2 64, 6 65, 3 66, 1 90, and 1 91. So what are the data gathering method that I used, I have the preparation phase. And during this phase, I prepared the letter. Actually po, before ako nag-conduct ng study, I had a chance to talk also with the mayor. And then they are very excited about this study because this is the first time that from Bulaneño, there is one who took the risk in make a dance and musical rendering. I know that this study is very difficult since it entails a lot of days to come up with a musical score sheet and to come up with a dance literature. And then I had the interview phase. During the interview phase, I let them first sign and explain the interview process, what is going on during the interview, and I also read them and even translate the ethical clearance. The ethical clearance is for the purpose of allowing the participants to have their faces or names published in my study, either printed electronically or digitally. And then for the interpretation phase, this is the time wherein I did the coding analysis through the responses. Now the results. Okay, so the identified specific hand and feet movements narrated by the old folks along fishing-related activity and body movements are as follows. Actually, when I have this interview, I immersed. I tried also to do the activities that they are doing so that I can come up with an authentic and raw materials and incorporating it in a festival. We all know that festivals or dance tells a story. It must appear that it is as original as possible. Though we have this dance improvisation, but we should not forget the authenticity of the dance movements. And these are the six identified movements along with fishing-related activity. So ito pong mga six fishing-related activity are the pagbugsay, the pagbugitis. I don't know if you are also using the term, but pagbugsay is like holding a canoe paddle or yung bugsay na sinasabi natin. And pagbugitis, I don't know if it's in Legazpi, we are using the term punao. And we also have paghikot. Paghikot is a casting of nets. Okay, and then pagbobo is the thumping or bugging the seabed to make a ripple or to make vibration. And we also have pagbintol. This is the crab baits, and paghipon. So these are the fishing-related activities that came out during the interview. And eto po yan. The pagbugsay is a Bulan term, yung pag ginagamit namin dito since usually po sa ganito pong study, I use verbatim. So naka-verbatim po ako. So which means a rowing or using a canoe paddle or an oar. So if you notice po on the figures, for figure 1, this is the head movement. Usually you can always make your head movement like as if that you're looking to your paddle or looking for somebody, a place where you can look for a catch or where you can put your fishing vessel at rest. And that is, you can move your head from left to right, and then just go straight. And then for figure 2, we also have the hand movement. So if you also notice that the illustration shows that the girl is just like holding a canoe paddle or an oar. And also, I also have the feet movement. So kung napapansin niyo po, usually ganyan lang po ang feet movement niya. It's just like standing on a fishing vessel. But in a festival po, if you're going to have a dance improvisation, since festival is in a progressive manner, usually po ang feet movement dito sa dance and musical rendering ko is more of a progressive or occupying approximately the general space. Meaning to say na kung halimbawa nasa street kayo, yung wideness ng street, that is your general space. So you can move either forward, sideward, or lateral, as long as that you are doing the head and hand movement for pagbugsay. And we also have this pagbugitis. Ayan po yung head movement. Usually, the head movement is just looking for an edible bivalves or tinatawag natin na bugitis or punao. Yan po ang pag-hatch nila. Tinitingnan nila ng ulo kung saan po meron o marami yung bugitis na sinasabi natin. At yan po yung hand movement. Actually po yung hand movement is pag na ano na siya ng paa mo, na-dig na siya pababa, kukunin na siya ng hand at ilalagay siya sa basket. So yun po ang base sa demonstration po ng mga old folks. So, and then the feet movement is just doing like that. Actually, your arms particularly if you're doing this feet movement, or I call it the tortiller, but in dance notation, I referred it as idos-idos in Bulan term. Usually it's just making a tortiller wherein the feet are just doing or digging the sand, the sea sand po. So yan, that's the feet movement. So pag lumabas na po dyan yung bugitis or yung punaw, that's the time for your hand to pick it up and then put it on the bien. And then that's the paghikot. So sa paghikot, actually, ang sa paghikot is, meron tayong pagtatawag na preparatory phase o yung kukunin mo yung hikot and then i-wrap mo siya sa arms mo and then sabay throw. So kung nakikita niyo yung consistency ng movement ng possession niya is the balance is yung nasa gitna para hindi pagtapon mo po ng net is hindi ka out of balance. And pwede po yung net po according also to the participants that you can also like use the casting of the net either doon lang sa malapit or just from pwede mo siyang itapon ng malayo as long as you maintain your balance. Okay po. So, and then sa pagbobo, we also have this thumping. Actually, thumping is already a traditional way of catching fish. Usually lang sa nasabi ng mga old folks, when they are doing the pagbobo, hindi po ito ginagawa sa mga malalalim. Ginagawa ito dun sa mga mabababaw. And then, para yung sound vibration na ginagawa ng bamboo in thumping or in bugging, yun ang para nagsiserve that it's now time for feeding. So yun daw ang connotation ng pagbobo na when you do the thumping or you do the bugging, the fish is associating the vibration or the ripple as feeding. Or yung iba naman po, sabi naman po ng ating participants, para pong nilalagay po sila ng net dun sa unahan, para halimbawa po pag nag-thump sila, yung isda pupunta lang doon at matatrap doon sa nilagyan nila ng net, and that is pagbobo. Sa pagbintol naman po, they are using also crab traps. So, ang ginagawa po daw nila is nilalagyan nila yun ng mga pungents, yung mga mababaho ng mga fish carcass. So, yun po nilalagyan nila sa cage na ginagawa nila. And then, ihuhulog lang po nila yan. Kaya yung head movement niya is usually just looking downward kasi that's the time the crab baits are been put below the sea level. So yun po ang ginagawa nila. And then sabi nila, binabalikan na lang doon ito pagka umaga and then just pull it out. So usually po dito sa pagbintol, yung hand movement na is just like pulling and then carrying the deep net or the drop net or the crab bait. And then sa paghipo naman po, actually ginagamit sila dito. Kaya po ganyan ang kamay nila kasi actually they're using para siyang net na naka-square lang siya and then parang isusuyod na nila doon sa river or either sa sea, and then pag nakakuha na sila, ito-cross nila yung kamay nila and then ilalagay na po siya sa lalagyan nila. And that is the head, hand, and feet movement. And if you also observe, mostly the head, hand, and feet movement is nakabalance lang siya kasi usually it entails like slow walking or gradual walking para hindi po na kumbaga nai-istorbo yung dinadakit nila o yung krill o yung paghipol. And then for the SOP2, I have also the identified music material of Padaraw in terms of rhythmic pattern and melodic pattern. Tempo and beat were the two themes found in identifying the music of Padaraw Festival. I code this because according to the participant, these fishing-related activities that I had mentioned a while ago were done, either in gradual manner, or either with great emphasis or with great stress. So if they are doing it from slow to fast, as sabi nila, sa pagdadakip daw ng mga hipon ng mga isda, kailangan mabagal ka lang, and then pag andyan na, bibilisan mo. So that can be classified as tempo because tempo is the measurement or the measurement of the rhythm. Halimbawa po from slow to fast or fast to slow. So that is the tempo. And also according to the participants, they also mentioned like sa pagbugsay, particularly if opposite ka sa sea current, kailangan mo nang mapersa. So, kailangan yung pagbagsak mo ng kamay is kailangan mapersa. So, ang ginagawa po nila is pag mapersa sila, So meron silang intensity or stress which can be associated to beat because beat has accented and unaccented beat. Pag sinabi po natin accented beat, that is the stress of the rhythm. Pag sinabi naman po unaccented beat, that is the non-stress rhythm. So kadalas niya nahina ang sound or usually wala dyan mga bass. And also to realize this po, the rhythmic pattern, they also identified a localized and indigenous materials, and according to them, kawayan, gitara, tambol, or budyong. Yung budyong was very significant sa kanila kasi sabi nila historically, that is used when someone arriving from the sea or pag tinatawag sila ng kanilang mga lolo. So yun ang very significant yun sa kanila. So sabi nila, it could be used as a music improvisation or musical improvisation in creating the rhythmic pattern. And this is po, if you observe po, that is the rhythmic pattern. Yung sa taas po, that 145, that is the metronome. Yan po mag-i-stress ng bilis o ng bilis po ng isang melody. Sorry, ng isang rhythm. And then, yun lang po sa baba, kung napapansin nyo, is yan po ang rhythmic pattern for the fast tempo. So usually, yung mga notes na po dyan is quarter and then 8 note. Yan po. And ito naman po yung rhythmic pattern for accented and unaccented beat. If you happen to observe po sa baba po, may mga crescendo type po dyan. Ito po, it is also known as the accents. Yan po ang mga accented beat. So that means that this movement, ang movement po dito is accented rin or stressed ang movement. Okay. For the melodic pattern po, actually, na lumabas din po sa study ko na according to the participants, if we are going to create a music, kasi ang Padaro Festival po has no existing original music. Ang ginagamit lang po ng music ng Padaro Festival is a Safri duo entitled Played Alive. This is a South African music. So borrowed lang po yun. So actually po, minsan po nga yung ano nila, yung music nila, ginagamit namin sa gymnastics or even sa ballet. So, kaya naalam ko na ang music ng Padaro Festival is not original. And according also to the participants, that melodic pattern or the melody of the Padaro Festival should tell about the culture or there is a familiarity. So pag narinig nila yon, ay, sa Bulan yan. Yan ang gusto nilang maisip. So they suggested that since Bulan, we also have the Bulan hymn. It is composed also by my co-teacher. Kaso wala po yung notation, kaya ninotate ko na lang siya. And nakalagay po talaga yun sa ordinance stating that the Bulan hymn will be the official hymn of Bulan in 2000. So yun po. So this is the Bulan hymn as the melodic pattern. And according also to them, why put it a song since ang Bulan po is celebrating the 220 years of Catholicism. So as a tribute daw po, kasi sabi nila, ang festival is it is also a way of thanksgiving for the bounties of the sea. So sabi nila, why look for a song, for a melody that can also be incorporated in a festival? So andito po yun. So that is also the Himno kay Maria yung na-research ko po, and this is a tribute for our patron saint Immaculada Concepcion as a celebration for 220 years of Catholicism in Bulan, Sorsogon. And what are the developed dance and music materials for the Padaro Festival? So according po to my participants, that we can, they suggested three concepts or 3 parts. The first part should be the discovery of Bulan. And the second part is I have to incorporate the fishing-related activities, yung nabanggit po nila kanina, yung mga pagbugsay, and also the body movements, and then the Thanksgiving. Now, to give you the visualization of what is the music po of the music and dance of Padaro Festival, here it is po. So that is and music material. So that is authentic. I made the dance material and also the music material. And for the conclusions and recommendations, for the conclusions and recommendations, that there are 6 fishing related activities. The 6 different fishing related activities like pagbugsay, paghikot, pagbobo, and pagbintol, and paghipon. We've determined the body movements of Padara Festival along the head, hand, and feet specifically. So, yung mga 6 related activities po, sila po yung nag-define kung ano po yung identified na body movements along the head and hand and feet. And analytically, the rhythmic pattern used along tempo and beats as materialized with the localized indigenous musical instruments defined the intensity and weight on how these fishing-related activities are supposed to be executed through body movements along with head, hand, and feet. Results revealed that the melodic pattern of Padara Festival described both religious and collective motifs existing in the community. The familiarity of the identified melodies creates an impact to the Bulaneño as it is easy to recall and can simply build meaning to the music and to the festival itself. Conferring on the suggestions of the participants, the dance and music materials of Padara Festival enhance the understanding and appreciation of cultural heritage and tradition of the whole community of Bulan through the aesthetic form of arts. And for the recommendations, there have been an immense impacts of arts in the lives of many. With the fast-changing world, authenticity and creativity thrive on its own safekeeping within the mundane of hearts and minds of those who believe in the power of arts. However, there are still communities, not only po in Bulan, that lack knowledge, awareness, appreciation, and support in making an authentic and creative performances. But this should not be the deal. The local government unit of any municipalities may include artistic endeavors in the municipal ordinance as part of the cultural development of the municipality. This would give mandate to the trainers, choreographers, and any art and culture enthusiasts to include dance and musical improvisation in creating innovative dance and music that will stimulate creativity, inspire choreography, and develop new artistic materials. To develop dance and music materials at Padara Festival opened the hearts and minds of the community to craft a research-based and culture-based artistic pursuit. Furthermore, there are many contextualized lessons in the Philippine educational setting. If dance showcases a collective identity of a community where movement tells a specific story, meaning, and impact, while music also depicts moods and movements, the utilization of such dance and music primer as a contextualized learning material is deemed necessary to further enhance cultural awareness and embrace an inclusive educational context. So that would be the end of my presentation now.
Okay, thank you very much, Tejada, for presenting your research. Now let us again invite our panel members, our panel of evaluators, Ma'am Bercasio, Sir Cortez, and Ma'am De Alban. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions with the presentation.
Thank you. Can I ask the other panel to be the first? Did I be just follow? I'm still preparing my question.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, Ma'am Bercasio. Can you try again, Puma?
Okay.
Hi, good
okay.
afternoon, ma'am.
Yes, thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
Briefly, what is Padaraw for
Padaraw Festival.
non-Sorsoganon?
Yes, ma'am. Padara Festival actually, ma'am, refer to the term word dara, which means school of fish. Actually, it is conceptualized by our former mayor, and this is an annual celebration wherein it is a tribute to for the town's bounties of the sea and also for the Thanksgiving as an honor to our patron saint Immaculada Conception.
Okay. So it is written in the paper under conclusions that the familiarity of the identified melodies creates an impact to the
Bulanenyo.
Bulanenyo,
Opo.
as it is easy to recall and can simply build meaning to the music and to the festival itself. Can you please elaborate on the impact of the melody?
Yes, ma'am. Oh, yes. Thank you, ma'am. Actually, ma'am, when particularly if we always hear a song like yung mga bagong kanta ngayon, like May May sa Bugera, we always have this LSS or the last song syndrome. And if this sorry, okay po. Actually, it will create an impact because this is the first time of the Bulanenyo to hear a melody on their own that will cultivate culture. Kasi pag narinig na, ay, Alsa Bulan, that's our song. So it will create an impact. It will enlighten their mood and it will push them to do the same, to create more research-based material, which can be a municipal identity or that can be tell that this is our own and this is our culture.
Yes, thank you for the response. I just suggest that we should be a little bit more careful in such a statement because as I see in the paper, this is not part of the scope, identifying the impact. And therefore, including a statement that the familiarity of the identified melodies create an impact can be sweeping because we do not have results and discussion about impact gathered from different sectors of Bulan. So perhaps we can reword this such that it would not be like a sweeping statement under the conclusion. If I may continue, yes. Thank you. If I may continue, Mr. Moderator, I am looking at the last statement in your conclusion. The dance and music materials of Padaro Festival enhance the understanding and appreciation of the cultural heritage and tradition of the whole community of Bulan. That is interesting to note, right? But it is stated in past tense, and therefore it means that you have a set of data presented and analyzed, capturing the understanding and appreciation. So there are two variables that you mentioned. One is understanding and another is appreciation. So I am wondering whether this has been part of the scope of the study. As I looked at the three problems that the study attempted to answer, this was not part of it. Can you explain to us?
You're on mute, Sir Tiaga.
Okay. So actually, ma'am, the conclusion is this will enhance the understanding and then at the same time the appreciation. I made the conclusions because in the past years, Bulaneños are still appreciating the festivals because they thinking that festivals are merely presentation, are merely entertainment. So they've been living for that kind of orientation, that festival it's just like a spectacular, a presentation, a colorful presentations. That's why I made the conclusions because I thought that if they have a festival on their own, which is research based according to their culture, to their heritage, they will have this understanding. What is Bulan? What is the primary source of living of Bulan? And what Bulan can offer to the community or even to the neighboring towns? And appreciation, it's because na yung Alsa Bulan and then this how do you call it, the hymno kan Immaculada Conception, nasa-set aside nila yun, madam. And they are not taking it seriously. Sometimes you barely hear it na kinakanta ng mga taga-Bulan. But through the festival that I have for conceptualize, it will create an appreciation na, pwede pala siyang ilagay sa festival. It can have a different meaning. It will have a different impact. That's why, ma'am, I put that in the conclusions because I thought it is sufficient, for the Bulanleño to enhance their appreciation and understanding about what is a research-based festival.
Yes, that is noted, and I understand where you are coming from. Technical, I do have echo, right? Yeah. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mark Glenn. I understand where you are coming from. But, in writing conclusions and in technical papers, each conclusion should have basis, meaning results and discussion of these results. Perhaps what you mean, perhaps you can rephrase it by saying that the proposed or the developed dance and music for the Padaraw Festival have the potential to promote understanding and appreciation of the cultural heritage of Bulan, something like that, not stated that way. So it's just a minor difference, but it would really change the impact to the readers. Because if that is the conclusion that I will read, I will look for your data capturing the understanding and appreciation of certain sectors of Bulan. One last, Sir Moderator, one last, Sir Mark. You said that the fishing related activity and then the body movements, these are basically your answers to problem number 1. There are certain terms in the dialect used, and those are interesting. I am wondering whether you were also able to find responses from the key informants capturing post-fishing activity. I noted that in the different terms depicting certain stories, they're catching fish, they're catching crabs, and then they're catching shrimp, something like that. They're rowing. So it's like in the sea or near the sea doing the fishing activity. So I am wondering whether in your key informants interview, you were able to identify also some post-fishing activity responses, maybe not the commonalities or the theme among the responses. So I'm just wondering whether you have those. Kasi after the fishing, what? I am wondering what would be the movements if they are now cleaning the fish or preparing the fish for certain dish, or like serving the fish to certain group of people as a way of Thanksgiving. So I'd like to connect the fishing activity to the religious activity of Thanksgiving. My curiosity. Yes.
Hold on. Actually, ma'am, during the interview, I had there is one answer that a certain fisherman answered me like sagudsod. I don't know if you are familiar with that term, sagudsod. Pagsasagudsod. Ang pagsasagudsod lang, it's using a very small hole, yung mesh niya, sagudsod, and ginagawa niya is yung sa ilalim ng dagat, yung seabed, yung sinasagudsod niya. So actually, ma'am, upon researching and also upon conferring also to the one who is knowledgeable about sagudsod, it is already prohibited today, yung sagudsod, ma'am. It's because it is considered as illegal fishing because the corals might be destroyed by using sagudsod. While in relation to your questions, if there is like yung mga after fishing, yung paglinis, yung pagbilad, yung pag-uga. Actually, ang Bulan ko is one of the exporters of dried fish, one exporter. However, ma'am, usually yung mga sagot po kasi ng mga participants ko, they focus on the fishing related activity. They are just parang pahapyaw yung about sa pagbalad kang isda o kang sira, and then after that wala na. So yung kinukuha talaga yung mga interview nila, and then here comes the theme na lumabas is the fishing related activities. Kaya madam, yung sa Thanksgiving part namin na saya, if you notice, most movements are in upward position because this will entail or will say that it's a Thanksgiving. It's giving honor to the patron saint. Although, yung pag-offer ng food is hindi namin nawawala, but I am open for Madam for some improvement in terms of, putting props kasi the limitation ko kasi Madam ang props. So perhaps it could be for the next study.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you, moderator.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sir, can I say something now? I'm prepared now.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead po.
Hi,
Sorry.
ma'am.
Maingay kasi ang nagtatrabaho sa amin. Narinig yun.
Opo, ma'am.
Siya eh. I'm sorry.
Sa sumasabay ma'am sa festival.
Magsasalita ako, nagsasabay na. Ngayon pinatigil ko. Sana huwag kang
That's music, ma'am. That's music.
Okay. Anyway,
Yes,
okay. I would like first to ask the researcher para medyo malinawan talaga ako. Sir,
Opo.
researcher, what led to the study? Why?
Actually,
Why do
ma'am,
you consider significant to you?
Actually, I have this reason. It's subjectively and objectively. Subjectively, ma'am, because I have been exposed in an environment where arts is very close to me. I am a music conductor, ma'am, in chorale.
Yeah.
I also compose music. Actually, ma'am, I already won several music writing competitions. And I also own my dance school, the Ballet de Sorsogon. So subjectively, this is because this is quite some fulfilling, I mean, upon discerning to the statement of municipal tourism officer that none of us ventured in this kind of study, that's something for me. And
Yeah.
objectively, in a sense, this is to educate at least those young generation, that kasi nawawala na yung value ng culture. So I think I could be an instrument and the rest will follow. I don't know. But it's
Well
like-
said, because your study speaks on cultural heritage, di ba? Because ang
Yes, ma'am.
cultural heritage is ways of living developed by a community from generation to generation, di ba?
Yes, ma'am.
The importance of doing this is to preserve the sense of unity. Yan lang ang tanong ko sa iyo. My next question. Sana walang magpukpuk. Sense of unity. When you say belonging within the group. Now, how do you use now your study to promote sense of unity?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, ma'am, thank you for that question. Kasi actually, ma'am, just a week ago, a municipal tourism officer called me and then they asked me about my study, what happened. So I just told them what transpired during the final defense. And I let them, show the final output. And they're very interested. Actually, madam, they are now crafting the municipal ordinance to change the Padaro Festival and to include the research-based production that is, done by me to be included in the festival. Actually, ma'am, mag-start po ako ng pag-teach ng dance and musical, pag-introduce, pag-orient this coming March. So I am very excited about that.
If you're going to examine the thrust of the higher education institutions, the tertiary, cultural heritage, preservation of cultural heritage. Nakalagay yan sa opisina namin sa CHED, cultural heritage.
Yes, ma'am. Oo.
Okay.
Kahit ma'am, sa Batas Pambasa 232, also known as Education, 1982.
You really want to institutionalize this one, so it should be supported by policy. If you really want to institutionalize this one. So I would like to suggest your next steps would be that one. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Now,
Noted.
looking at the keywords presented in your study, alam mo kasi I would like to admit, nahirapan ako magbukas, kaya ngayon ko lang ito nakita. Hindi kasi ako marunong. Kailangan ko na assistance just to open my email, no? Napaka-complicated pa naman ang Apple na napaka-complicated, my dad, napaka-sensitive. Okay, nakita ko yung keywords mo, fishing-related activities. How do you use this? Nakita ko na, pinandong na ito ni Ma'am Becky. Pero paano kaya, ini-imagine ko, mayroon na bang mga studies sa review of related activities mo, proven and tested that talaga ito enhance ng fishing, na nakakapagkuha ng maraming fish when we use this aesthetic form of art in dance and music?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, those fishing-related activities, even in other countries, because I am trying to, how do you call that? To identify the differences between what is Philippine traditional fishing and what is the other countries, the Western and the other Asians, and they have the same, procedures, validating the answers also of the participants. And meron talaga ma'am siyang existing na literature. Actually, nagulat niya ako. Kasi I find it so difficult, in particular yung pagbobo. What's the English of pagbobo?
Yeah,
So, upon searching, and then I realized like, it's tamping because it really it derived from the word tampers or bubble tampers na ginagamit talaga nila, madam, when feeding fish or creating ripples or vibrations on the sea.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, suggestion ko na lang, in your study, when you present the result, see to it that every table, according to the statement of the problem, kasi binabasa ko pa kanina, there should be citations in the impact of the result para nag-justify talaga. Citation, that's why tinanong kita kung mayroong mga study na about this one. Then you can cite the citation kasi ang research kasi it's not opinionated really. It's not like ang resource and then the impact. What's the impact of the result? Para medyo na-strengthen yung study mo. Okay? Then this really ito ang strengths ng Sorsogon. Di ba yung mga dances? Yan ang strengths.
Yes, that is true. I agree.
Yung mga dances. Okay?
Opo.
So, I hope that it does not stop there. Here, yung research mo. I hope that i-sustain mo. You don't stop here after gathering the data. Okay? Kailangan ma-support ito na ma-institutionalize ito. Kailangan may policy because whatever, kahit anong ganda ng ginawa mong program, kahit anong ganda ng ginawa mong research, pag wala talaga yan na policy, walang ngipin, hindi yan pwedeng i-effect. Because number one consideration is the mobility, financial, Kasi pag meron talagang legal basis, may budget yan. And I hope whatever policy that will be developed, it should be across administration. Because that's another problem natin dito, nag-change ang mayor, nag-change ang governor, wala na siya. So very important yan, in any ordinance, ako kasi yan ang nakikita ko sa mga local colleges, kailangan across administration para hindi mapolitika, para continue mag-sustain, para naman yung nagpagod na nag-research naman, nabayaran naman yung effort nila at least. So, that's my suggestion to your study. It should not stop here. Kailangan i-continue mo ito para it will really serve the purpose. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. You're welcome. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma'am D. Alban. Do we have further questions po from Prof. Cortez?
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, sir.
Una, ang tanong ko lang is, why Padaraw, wherein Bulan is known for Lawlaw?
Okay po, sir. Actually, sir, Bulan is known for Lawlaw, pero Lawlaw is also part of the fishing-related activity. Kasi yung sa fishing-related activity po, like paghikot, pagdakop ng isda, andun na po, sir, yung Lawlaw, pero hindi ko lang po siya, sir, in-emphasize it's Lawlaw kasi actually it's not only Lawlaw ang Bulan po is rich. Usually po nakifish lang talaga po, sir, ang Bulan. It's because we have oversupply of Lawlaw. I know na nakikita nyo na po yan sa mga news, but Lawlaw is also seasoned. Seasoned ang pag-hatch po. Usually it's around August, January, August, and then September. So yun po ang season ng Lawlaw. I call this Padaraw, sir. It's because Padaraw the Daraw is a school of fish. So it's a general term for all the fishes gathered during the Daraw or during the full moon.
Okay. Kasi sana, di ba, sabi mo, it actually shows the culture of ng mga taga-Bulan, di ba? And dapat, ang ipapakita mo, yung culture of fisheries na meron ang Bulan. Maybe you can ask one of our colleagues, Professor Juneda, because she's one of those experts who are actually into the fishery sector.
Sure.
So, alam niya kung ano yung mga fishing method na yon, and I believe merong English term yon. Kasi hindi naman yun masabing biglang galing lang sa Bulan. Sigurado ako alam yun ni Professor Juneda. Pangalawa, yung sabi ko nga, yung parang nakikita ko doon sa research mo ay, did you ever consider yung time in motion ng mga processes that are involved in its fishing activities? Halimbawa, yung isang fishing activities mo, yung parang pagsagwan yung itsura niya, yung isang cycle niya, pinapakita mo ano yung mga gumagalaw at paano siya, meron ba siyang pinapakita na meaning o body language?
Yes, sir. So as defined, sir, during sa discussion ko po, like sa results, yung siguro po sir yung minimum na pagbugsay, actually, sir, stationary lang yung galaw namin doon. It's because the camera is steady. But in the actual, sinabi ko po kanina, that festival, these movements can be done in a progressive manner. So actually, sir, it's actually moving para nakikita talaga, sir, yung meaning niya. So yung pagbugsay, sir, it's actually a rowing of your canoe paddle or pagbugsay. So yun po talagang pinapakita niya. However, in the video, since I cannot have the video during the dancing in the street because the camera is steady, so that's why we have it in a stationary movement, sir. But I believe, sir, that this all movements included in the dance materials have also meaning based from the discussion in the results, sir.
So does it represent ba yung talagang fishery culture ng Bulan?
Yes, sir. It really represents the fishery culture of Bulan kasi these activities are all fishing-related activities which Bulan are known for, which Bulan is known for, sorry.
Okay. So yun mang maganda mapakita mo doon kasi parang kulang yung result mo doon sa maganda yung sinasabi mong result but parang hindi namin nakikita doon sa analysis ng research mo.
Hi, sir. Actually, if I have the opportunity also to present you the whole manuscript because I just get a portion of my research. Yeah, you'll be able to see there, sir, the presentation, the interpretation, and then the analysis or the PIA, the sequencing and the thematic coding analysis, and then you'll be able to identify what's the meaning of this and where this is coming from. It is validated. The narration of the participant study are this validated. So if you have also the opportunity to read the whole manuscript, you'll be able, sir, to see what you're looking for, the analysis.
Kasi halimbawa, 'di ba, ang naisip ko lang ano lang. 'Di ba yung kanta na magtanim ay di biro, it represents farming. 'Di ba? Rice farming.
Yes, sir.
So ito sana parang ganoon din siya. Yung nabuo mo na kanta para do sa fisheries na kung ano talaga siya. Kasi tingnan yung 'di ba yung lyrics ng magtanim ay di biro, yun ay yung mga bata pa. Ay
Yes,
yun
sir.
ay kung paano yung activities meron sa farming, ano yung experience ng tao, kung nakakapagod siya, kung ano siya. So yun yung parang hinahanap ko doon sa research mo, doon sa output mo.
Okay, sir. Kasi, sir, based from the suggestions of the participants, they wanted the Alsa Bulan to be featured in the festival, just to have a sense of identity. And binagay ko yun, sir, place ko yun, sir, sa music material in a sense that it will only give meaning to oneness or the unity of Bulan through festival. Kasi yung lyrics, Bulan Alsa Bulan, para na magdaronunan at magtarabangan. So it's a general term where it can happen to any occupations like in fishing and farming. So I placed the music or the melodic pattern in a way that it will not compromise the meaning of what Padaro Festival is all about.
Mas maganda kasi music writer ka sabi mo. So maybe you can write a more appropriate na song na that actually represents the culture of Bulan. Sarili mo talaga. Sabihin, yun na talaga yun. Para pag nabi ni Ma'am Alban, pag na-institutionalize siya, di kahit wala ka na, nandun pa rin yung music mo.
Okay, sir. Noted. Maybe, sir, next time I can compose song for the Padaro
Thank you very much.
Noted, ma'am. Noted, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. Opo.
Okay, thank you very much again, Professor Cortez, for the comments. And also thank you for Sir Tejada for the presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Yeah, thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
So to continue our presentation, let us have the work of Roldan C. Caviles with his work on lived experiences and philosophies, basis for life skills, guide for beginning teachers. I ask Sir Caviles for his presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Sir Joseph. I believe I have sent Sir my video presentation on this.
Okay, sir. So let me check. So I will just play, sir, the presentation.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
This study produced a life skills guide for beginning teachers, anchored on the life history and philosophies of the key informants from the 3 schools of the Department of Education, Schools Division Office of Albay. Specifically, it answered the following questions. What is the life history of beginning junior high school teachers in terms of personal circumstances, professional experiences, aims and aspirations in life, sources of joy and feeling of success, challenges and concerns, and views on teaching? What life skills have they demonstrated in terms of teaching, transportation and living condition, establishing interpersonal relations, and adapting to the community? What educational philosophies are reflected in the life history and life skills of teachers? What life skills guide for beginning teachers may be proposed, taking into account the lived experiences, life skills, and educational philosophies of identified teachers? This is qualitative phenomenological research that recorded the lived experiences of the key informants through in-depth interviews and participant observation of the key informants. This study selected Itaran National High School as the study locale for the rural area, Marshall Oreñola Memorial School for the urban area, and Rapu-Rapu National High School for the coastal area. These schools were selected because they have the highest number of deployed junior high school teachers. The central objective of this research is to produce a life skills guide for beginning teachers to orient them to local realities in rural, urban, and coastal schools, to provide them with a big picture of the place and equip them with the necessary skills they need to survive teaching in the area and eventually perform their job effectively and efficiently. This guide is an offshoot of the key informant's life circumstances, philosophies, and demonstrated skills drawn from a series of interviews and participant observation of the researcher in the study locales. Because of the global health crisis brought about by the COVID-19, virtual platforms such as Facebook Messenger, Google Meet, Zoom application, and phone calls were used to gather the data aside from the face-to-face interviews because of the current pandemic. Based on the analysis made in this study, the following are the results and findings. Generally, the life history of teachers reflects grit and resilience, along with their external and internal motivations in their choices, particularly in their professional development. In terms of personal circumstances, the key informants possess a genuine and deep love for family, which includes not simply the spouses and children, parents and siblings, but also grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, godparents, and other extended relatives. To them, family is a source of personal identity and the source of emotion and material support, and the person's main commitment and responsibility. Others are left with no choice but to take the path of the teaching profession because it is the source of their income, their bread and butter. For them, teaching sustains their daily needs and becomes the foundation of their being. Because of it, they were able to finish their degree and provide their children quality education from the wage they get in teaching. Their present line of thinking is influenced by their previous experiences from childhood to this time. It is usually influenced by several incidents in their lives, including culture, people, and environment that led them to their present circumstance. Nonetheless, Given this ideology, they view life as a situation that is full of good memories and challenging moments, which for them is natural because it makes life meaningful. The COVID-19 pandemic has made them feel immensely apprehensive because the landscape of education has likewise drastically changed, particularly the mode of delivery of instruction in the Department of Education. As of this moment, they are still transitioning from traditional to distance learning. Thus, they need to be continuously capacitated with this kind of modality, coupled with the availability of appropriate technology in the school. In terms of professional experiences, their choice of the teaching profession is motivated by their personal circumstances. Being a public teacher in a government institution will provide them a comfortable life and achieve their aims and aspirations in life and become stable. For them, teaching is a profession where one needs to endure many sacrifices because it consumes their personal time attending to the many concerns even at home. However, their commitment to teaching remains. The new normal brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic has challenged most of them, especially in adjusting particularly on the use of technology for distance learning. They find difficulty in navigating platforms for teaching, including printing modules for remote learners, sorting out, distribution, and retrieval. In terms of aims and aspirations in life, the key informants' aims and aspirations were influenced by their personal and professional experiences. They aim to uplift their family's condition and aspire for the betterment of their family, and they aspire for the success of their family members to attain a comfortable and secure life later on. They relate their aims and aspirations towards work, particularly on being promoted to a higher rank or position. Gaining a higher rank for them will provide them a higher compensation for them to comfortably provide the basic needs of their family. Their feeling of success is reflected in their personal and professional achievements as a result of their hard work and dedication in teaching. Success for them is the sense of being happy, which they get from their environment and people they have interacted with, as well as becoming somebody who has fulfilled their aims and aspirations. Furthermore, obtaining a higher educational attainment for them is a way to get promoted to the teaching profession, as well as for updating themselves with the new pedagogical trends while getting a higher compensation. Their sources of joy and feeling of success are driven by their personal and professional experiences in life. Similar to their personal circumstance, family is one of their sources of joy, particularly their bonding moments. During the pandemic, the help extended by their family members in doing work-related documents, such as sorting out and printing of modules to be distributed to the learners, also gives them happiness. Moreover, doing recreational activities like swimming, hiking, watching movies also releases stress and diverts them from mental disturbance, which may lead to depression. Their light and easygoing relationship with colleagues also strengthens their interpersonal relationship, which is helpful in carrying out their duties and responsibilities as teachers. Meanwhile, they feel successful when they see their students achieve their dreams or have become the person they wanted to be. Because of this, they become intrinsically motivated in inspiring more learners to continue creating a legacy. The key informants relate their challenges and concerns along with personal circumstances and professional experiences. The main concern of teachers in the rural, urban, and coastal schools is the lack of preparation in the middle of the pandemic. They were caught unprepared on how to transition to the new normal that requires technological skills among teachers, like navigating learning management system as a platform in delivering their lessons. Moreover, lack of school facilities, poor access to the internet, improper behavior, the passivity of students in learning across subjects, and poor reading comprehension have been perennial concerns of every school. Their personal and professional circumstances are contributory factors to their views in teaching. They view teaching as a big responsibility to fulfill because there are many challenges in it. Most of their time is devoted to teaching, even when they are already at home, particularly during the pandemic because there are many deliverables expected of them. Thus, commitment to teaching is necessary, including love and passion for teaching, to endure the challenges that come along. Furthermore, they view it as a noble profession, as it hones many professionals who are part of nation building. They see it as a reward when their students become self-fulfilled and regulated, and are now fully independent in their lives. They believe that values should be strongly instilled hand in hand with learning to holistically develop a child, especially that the virtual learning time is bombarded with many explorations which may lead learners towards improper direction. In particular, the common demonstrated life skills of teacher participants in rural, urban, and coastal areas are adaptability, flexibility, good communication, interpersonal or social skills, pedagogical skill, and practicality. Teacher participants in the rural and urban areas are digitally literate, and competitiveness was mainly reflected in the urban areas. On the other hand, financial literacy is strongly reflected among the teacher participants from the rural and coastal areas, probably because there are few to none distractions which may tempt them to spend. Among urban teachers, it was noted that they are susceptible from spending their money because they are surrounded with commercial establishments and entertainment centers. Specifically, based on the life history and demonstrated life skills, teachers in the rural, urban, and coastal areas reflect essentialist, humanistic, existentialist, pragmatist, progressivist, reconstructionist, constructivist, idealist, behaviorist, and perennial philosophies. Moreover, it was significantly observed that selected teacher participants in the rural and coastal also exhibit positivism that is influenced by their field of expertise, which is mathematics and science. These educational philosophies of teachers strengthen their coping mechanisms as well as the teaching competence. The developed Life Skills Guide is based on the lived experiences of teachers, specifically targeting the 3 areas of deployment of beginning teachers. The Life Skills Guide for Beginning Teachers is proposed to help the beginning teachers cope with the actual realities of their teaching assignments. The contents reflect the realities that teachers face as culled from their life history, demonstrated life skills, and educational philosophies. The following recommendations were derived based on the aforementioned findings and conclusions.
Okay, so that ends the presentation of Sir Roldan Cabules. Once again, let me invite our panel of evaluators for their comments and suggestions.
Okay, sir. May I
Go
start? Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you,
Miguel.
sir. Thank you for that presentation. Number 3, life experiences and philosophies, basic for life skill for beginning teachers. Now, sir, researcher.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We know very well that teachers play a very critical role. Okay, leaders and facilitators of learning, right?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Teachers can even make or break a student. That is how important. And if you are going to analyze in depth, we could conclude that teaching is both a profession and a vocation. Di ba? Synonymous sila eh. Sabi nila kasi profession sila because we need to come up, it's a career that requires getting extension trainings, acquiring more knowledge, para empowerment, lahat-lahat niyan. And a vocation because it's really parang worthy and a God-given calling. How beautiful, how God-given calling. Now from the result, the findings of your study, alam mo kung tinitingnan ko yung findings of your study mo, if I will summarize, yung meron silang 3 marks of excellence, yung teachers mo. How many percent ba? Ano yung setting of the study, sir? Where is the setting of the study?
There are 3 schools, ma'am. I have chosen one school for rural, one for urban, and one for coastal. For rural, ma'am, I have chosen Itara National High School. For the urban area is Marshall Memorial Oranyola Memorial School in Ginobatan. And for the coastal, I have chosen Rapu-Rapu National High School, madam.
Okay. If you are going to consider the total employee and teacher of this concerned schools, how many ang total sana? Ilan?
There are 15 teachers involved in this study, ma'am.
Nag-random sampling po kayo?
It's actually, ma'am, purposive sampling already because the one who chose the respondents was the principals of the respective schools because they did not allow me to stay in a very long time in every school because of the restrictions. Because during that time, the restrictions, the IATF guidelines were really heightened and really practiced by some schools, ma'am.
Ano po yung period coverage? Kasi kung titinan mo scope and delimitation, it should answer the who, the what, and the when. Ano po yung coverage niya? When did you start and when did you end?
Yes, ma'am. I've started conducting the research. That was June of 2020, and I have ended gathering data on the April of 2021, madam.
Okay, so nasa middle talaga siya ng pandemic, di ba?
Yes, ma'am.
Nandun yung mga challenges, nandoon.
Yes.
So makukuha mo talaga yung nasa loob ng nila, yung how to be a resilient teacher because of the challenges faced. Kasi ang greatly affected is the health in education. Okay. So nakikita ko nga while listening sa result ng mo, nandoon yung 3 seals of excellence ng isang tao, ng isang teacher. One is doing the job. Number 1 is selflessness. Nakalimutan nila ang sarili nila. Tama ako? Okay,
yes, ma'am.
to sum it up. Number 2 is committed sila, may compassion sila, compassionate. So determined talaga sila to deliver. Most especially blended flexible learning tayo, di ba, sir?
Yes,
Flexible
ma'am.
learning, blended learning, yung Zoom or whatever, and then ano ba yun? Modular. How do you deliver that is another problem, no? Ganon. And number 3 is adaptation. Yan ang pinakamahirap sa tao mag-adapt, no? Ganyan. So yan doon yung tatlo. Sana very good sana ganon. But sir, considering yung yung areas, yung parameters mo when you evaluate this for them, yung life history, okay, we have the personal circumstances. We know very well that ang personal circumstances is very hard to measure. Anong ginamit mo po to measure their personal circumstances so that makuha mo talaga completely yung data na kailangan mo?
Yes, ma'am. I have, thank you for the question, madam. I have actually conducted an interview with regard to their previous experiences. And aside from that, I have also requested for their previous memoir. I have searched for the documents, for example, their pictures that they have before, even the pictures that when they are still in the basic education, so that I could really look into their personal circumstances up to the present circumstance. Because these are actually some of the basis. This is one of the basis in crafting the very purpose of the study, which is the life skills guide for beginning teachers, madam.
Kasi may mga study, I cannot just recall, nababasa ko lang na one area what builds teaching commitment to teach. No, what builds employees commitment to one, what builds teachers commitment is yung when you consider yung leadership, yung comfort, etc. Pero let's go back to personal experiences. Did you ever consider also under personal experiences early stages of growth in development? Sometimes kasi nakaka-affect yan sa mga teachers. Wala po yan sa questions ninyo. Yung mga challenges nila nung early stages of growth in development, wala.
Yes, ma'am. It's actually included in the personal circumstances of the respondents, and as we crafted the instrument, the unstructured interview guide, part of the indicator in the questions is to look into their experiences during their early stages, because this is one significant factor that may affect their philosophy right now.
Correct.
In
That's
fact,
why kineso ko, very related to educational philosophies. In
yes,
fact,
ma'am.
maraming study na nabasa ko lang, hindi ko lang nga ma-recall Basta yun yung early stages of growth in development wherein, most especially during yung mga yung mga tasks to develop for every stages of growth in development. Kung may problema talaga doon is magkakaproblema ka rin. Although, correct, but the thing is, it affects educational philosophies, right? Okay, so, well, kung that is considered, okay na yon. Okay. Now, sir, ito po ang ko, no? So, yung kung titinan mo yung ano po yung ginamit ng theoretical framework for this? And how do you relate it to your variable?
I have used, ma'am, the two theories of these are conflicting theories actually, but I have just called out the similar concepts of the two theory, the theory of Heidegger, and of course the theory of let me recall, Heidegger, and of course let me check it in my manuscript for a while now.
Okay.
The hermeneutic theory of Heidegger, under the phenomenological, and of course the other one is the Husserl phenomenological theory, and particularly it captured on the social reality of the human knowledge, skills, and attitudes of teachers, of the participants, and of course with focus on their lived experiences, the meaning and interpretation of their experiences, their perception about life and sociocultural and environment. And the last one is the philosophical thoughts, views, and concepts that are reflected in the objectives of this study, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So, based on the findings or the result of your study, the expected output is to develop, di ba? Develop yung, what's that? What do you call that?
A life skills guide for beginning teachers, ma'am.
Module ba yon? You call it module or what?
It's actually, ma'am, a kit. It's like a kit that the beginning teachers could read when, of course, they're about to teach, whether in a private or in a public school. The results of this study have been used to be able to develop that guide, because we see that in the basic education, particularly in the public institution, teachers are only oriented of the basic policies like the Republic Act, but there is no actually focus on the life skills, on what are they going to do when they're assigned in the rural school, in the coastal school, or in the urban school. That's why I, as the researcher, really looked into developing this material and possibly be incorporated in the orientation of teachers, because yes, a teacher should really be oriented before they start teaching in an institution. I hope that this material be part of their orientation process, and I wish that this material also be sent after, since that it's already, the research is already done. I wish that the material be sent to the National Office of the Department of Education, and of course in other public institutions, so that it will be used now by the teachers, and of course by every school. So they would now be oriented as to how they're going to treat their beginning teachers, and also the teachers can also have the idea on what they're going to do the moment they step in the place of the school, because it's the crafting of the guide actually started from the moment you are given with the appointment by your supervisor until you are already in the place, or you're about to mingle with your colleagues and other aspects in teaching.
Okay. In the preparation of this, what are the areas that you conceptualize? Ano yung mga areas na yon based on the findings of your study? Ano itong mga areas na ito na pig-cluster mo? How many areas ito? Just give me the salient points. Kasi hindi ko nakita yung loob ng ano. Very important kasi ito.
Yes, ma'am.
Because meron akong next question sa'yo.
Yes, ma'am. There are actually 7 components that I have considered. It's translated in English and Filipino, but let me give you, ma'am, the Filipino version. The first is pagtungo sa lugar, on how you're going to go to the place. Next is ikahandaan at kaalaman sa pagtuturo. Next would be pakikihalubilo sa mga kasamahan, pamumuhay ng maayos doon sa lugar na iyong pagtuturuan, pakikipag-ugnayan sa komunidad, like in the school, barangay or in the parishes, and also pananatili ng kawilihan sa pagtuturo, and the last one would be pagpapalago ng buhay espiritual.
Okay, very good, kasi this is consistent with the concept of man, unique spiritual being as a system, etc. Okay, sir. Okay, another question ko, do you think it's worthy for this research, your suggestion, your proposition, your recommendation to be implemented?
Yes, ma'am. I think the number one recommendation that I have in my paper is to really integrate this in the teacher induction program, particularly in the Department of Education, so that teachers, the newly hired teachers, would be oriented of the localities, because the guide presents the realities in the rural, urban, and and coastal schools. So when they know this already, they will be prompted already on what they are going to do when they are assigned in rural, urban, or coastal, because you would not know where are you going to be assigned. So you cannot demand your boss that I would like to be assigned in a coastal school. So it would be better if you are already prepared with these life skills, or already equipped with these life skills, whether so that when you are assigned in any of the geographical location, you can confidently do your job. And of course, there is quality in your work because you know what to do already.
Okay, sir. Considering that's really worthy to be implemented, my next suggestion is you endorse it to the right person. When I say right person, persons in authority. Okay, so that it will be institutionalized if you think you can help teachers. Okay, and then makaroon ng policy para uniformly magamit. And the next suggestion ko is, it does not stop there. Kailangan may evaluation, because I believe in every program there should always be an evaluation.
Yes,
Because
ma'am.
change is the only permanent thing in this world to level up. That's my suggestion. Maraming salamat, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, madam.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Ma'am D. Alban. Do we also have questions from our other panel of evaluators? Prof. Cortez, Prof. Bertasio.
Hello, ako muna. Si Ma'am Vicky na muna. Ako na. Si Ma'am Vicky. Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
First, I would like you to ask, ano ba yung bakit kailangan siyang may pinasok mo sa factor yung rural, urban, and coastal?
Yes, sir. I decided that I should be able to include all the geographical locations because first, it's the recommendation of my panelists that I should include the three perspectives, the three geographical locations, because this is a dissertation. And also, knowing that it's a good suggestion coming from the experts, I also see that if I am going to look into the three geographical locations, the guide would be comprehensive already. So the teacher would also know, as I have mentioned a while ago in the question of Madam, that if I will just get the one geographical location, it might incomplete, because some teachers might also be assigned in other localities. So what if the teacher is assigned in the coastal school and there's no guide for the coastal, so it would be incomplete. That's the reason why I really look into the three geographical locations, so that there is comprehensiveness in the guide that I have developed, sir.
Okay, mamaya ko na itatanong I would like to ask, yung reference mo nung life skills na in-identify mo. Kasi based on some literature, the World Health Organizations in 1999 have actually identified 6 key areas that determines life skills guide. Una ay communication and interpersonal skills, decision-making and problem-solving skills, creative and critical thinking skills, self-awareness and empathy, assertiveness or self-control, and resilience. Those are the identified key areas for determining life skills guide according to the World Health Organizations. With your result, ang dinidiscuss mo kanina is about adaptability, flexibility, good communication, interpersonal, social, pedagogical, and practicality. So parang hindi nagma-match yung dalawa compared nung sa World Health Organizations. So also, I would like to ask you, pag sinabi mo bang skills, does it include soft and hard skills?
Yes, sir. It includes the soft and hard skills of teachers.
So, ang soft skills, ang base sa literature, it means yung personal attribute, habit, and traits of an individual, di ba? while hard skills are actually the technical skills. So halimbawa, pag tinanong kita, ano yung specific o general skills na dapat meron ang isang teacher na isang bata o na magiging teacher. Yung general, anong soft and hard skills meron siya. You can identify that. Ngayon, ano yung specific na skills na meron siya kung siya ay ma-assign sa rural area, ma-assign sa urban, at ma-assign sa coastal areas?
Yes, sir. For the technical skill, sir, there are two significant technical skill that the teacher should have. First, there should have technological skill because we are in the 21st century, and the second would be the content of the subject matter that they're gonna be teaching in the field, sir. That's what I mean in the technical skill that that should be discussed in the definition of terms of my study, sir.
Okay. Kasi sabi mo, you are producing a guide.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, halimbawa, ako ay isang soon-to-be teacher. Ano ang magiging specific skills ko kung ako ay ma-assign sa isang rural, in urban or coastal areas?
The common skill only, sir, for the three geographical locations.
Ano yung specific skills na dapat meron ako?
Considering the three geographical locations, sir, the very glaring life skills that a teacher should have is the practicality and adaptability, because these are two significant skills that are reflected as I looked into their experiences. The glaring part is the practicality and adaptability, because some of them do not have the enough knowledge of the culture of the place. That's why they have developed already the practicality. They have known already how to be practical living in the coastal, may it be in coastal, in the urban, or in the rural area, and even the adaptability, because they have to adapt with the culture that they that the place has.
Okay. So ang next na question ko is, how many sample teacher do you have?
There are actually, sir, 15 key informants
Per each ano yan?
From this
15
study.
From its geographic locations like rural, urban, and coastal?
No, sir.
O
5
tignan man
each.
siya?
5 each, sir, per
Okay.
school.
So ang isang issue ko ngayon is, did you consider variations in terms of the socioeconomic profile of the key informant?
In terms of socioeconomic profile, sir, I think that was not really captured, but the variety of the respondents was the one taken into consideration by the researcher, because I was not really given the chance to really choose the respondents that I want. But in terms of choosing the respondents, I have considered first tenured teachers who were not residents of the local. Letter B, tenured teachers who were residents of the local. And letter C, beginning teachers who were non-residents of the local. And finally, beginning teachers who were residents of the local. By getting these different types of teachers, I think that the data would be varied, and there could be comprehensiveness in the discussion, and of course there would be relevance in the crafting of the life skills guide for beginning teachers.
Okay. So aside from the socioeconomic profile, we need also to consider the environmental profile of the respondent. Halimbawa, ako ay sabihin natin ako ay lumaki sa isang urban areas. Then ma-assign ako sa isang coastal areas. What adjustment ang kailangan kong gawin? So, di ba, ang nagiging concept natin, yung environmental behaviorism, sinasabi nila na pag ang isang tao ay taga Masbate o taga-isla, we expect them na marunong sila lumangoy. Tama?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Oh.
sir. That's reflected, sir, in the life skills guide that I have developed.
Okay.
That they have to be aware of the environment of the place. Like, in the coastal, ang pagkain doon, sir, ay iba din. Iba din ang pagkain na meron sa rural. So they have to be. It's specified already in the content of the life skills guide, sir.
So, ganun yung parang yun yung hinahanap ko na mga output dun sa pinipresent mo kanina, no? Kasi
Okay,
nga
sir.
sabi natin, the difference in the life experiences will also result in different life skills. So, napaka-importante nung socioeconomic and environmental profile ng isang respondent for us to develop a guide. Para kasi magiging generalist yung guide natin. So, but still, for this one, ma-identify natin siya. Like, sabi natin ngayon, maraming teacher ang marunong magmotor. That's a part of the technical skills. Kasi, kailangan nila sa trabaho nila, kasi yung every time na magpunta na ng school ay nagko-commute sila. Ngayon, maraming teacher ang makikita mo, may kanya-kanya silang motor. It becomes a requirement for some areas. Lalo na yung mga parplang barangays. So, parang ganun yung parang mas practical na ipapakita natin dun sa guide mo. Kung
Yes,
maasas
sir.
sa parplang barangay, at least isang skills na pwedeng matutunan mo is how to drive a motorcycle so you can reach the area mas madali, hindi kang magko-commute ka. Okay? So, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Sir Cortez. Now let's have Prof. Percasio.
Yeah, thank you. Now
Good
my
afternoon,
turn,
madam.
since much has been focused on the findings and then on the guide that was developed, I'd like to focus on the methodology. Phenomenology is the study of structures of consciousness as experienced by the individual from the first person point of view. And the central structure of an experience is its intentionality. I'd like to ask the researcher how intentionality of experience was addressed in the study.
Thank you for that, Madam Becky. There are several strategies that I have conducted to be able to enter into the lived experiences of the key informants. Considering that we are in the time of pandemic, first, I have conducted a very informal interview because I believe that if it's informal interview, the participants would be able to disclose more personal information, and they would not be shy sharing their experiences, taking into considering that this research focuses on the lived experiences. The second would be there had been immersions conducted on the 3 study locales, and if I may not be able to be present with them, I would connect them via Zoom. We have interaction online, and we have been using Messenger also to connect with us every day, so that I would be updated of what are happening to them within the day. And of course, if in the coastal, since that there is no internet connectivity, I would opt to sometimes call them so that I would be able to connect with them and get some updates from them, Madam.
Okay, so thank you for telling us how you gathered your data. I'd like to add a little bit more to my question. Phenomenology, focusing on the structure of various types of experiences from the first person point of view, range from perceptions, thoughts, memories, imaginations, emotions, desires, volition to bodily awareness, embodied actions, social activities, and others. I would like to find out from the researcher which of these were addressed by the study. I heard you mention a while ago while responding to the comments and questions of the evaluator about their perception I also heard you about saying about their thoughts, specifically on their educational philosophies. I'd like to find out whether the other types of experiences focused in a phenomenological study were covered or addressed by the study. And if not, did you indicate this in the delimitation of the study?
Thank you, ma'am. These are actually, ma'am, reflected in the statement of the problem one of my study, which is the personal circumstances, professional experiences, aims and aspirations in life, sources of joy and feeling of success, challenges and concerns, and views in teaching. And these are the only focus in identifying the lived experiences of this study, ma'am.
I understand that you reported that as results for problem number 1. I would like to find out whether in the process of discussing the results for the life circumstances, you went further by classifying the experiences according to the different types that I mentioned.
Yes, ma'am. These are all reflected in the discussions. Like it's all actually dominantly reflected in their personal experiences because we recall the past experiences of the key informants. And of course, there had been social interactions that they have had before and even at the present. So I think, ma'am, those are reflected already in the discussions of this study.
Okay, because I am looking right now at the paper and I am browsing the introduction part. So I am trying to look at those, but anyway, I encountered the second to the last paragraph of the introduction. And in here, the first sentence talks about the different categories of schools that was raised earlier. And then in the same paragraph, it talks about the 2013 functional literacy, the FLEMS results, and results of examination for grades 3 to 6, and then grades 1 to 2, so on and so forth, including the program for international student assessment. In this part, I'd like to suggest that you have to separate these two concepts captured in this same paragraph. This one concept has something to do with the presentation of the locale of the study, and the other one has something to do with some issues confronting education in general in the country. And it is mentioned in the last paragraph, though, that to attend to these needs of teachers, there is a need to develop their life skills, something like that. But for this particular paragraph, I think you have to rethink about this and then divide this paragraph. And since in the first part of this has something to do with the categories of the school, which you answered already a while ago because it was suggested by the evaluators, by the panelists or experts. But I think what you can place here, researcher, is not because this was suggested by the experts, but because the meaning that people attach to their experiences is affected by the context, including the cultural context. I think that is the most appropriate response. Should you revise this part of the paper, I think you can place that as the most acceptable reason. Going back to the paper, I am looking at the paper. Of course, it would be hard to capture the guide here. So you just mentioned the 7 parts of the guide, right?
Yes,
my
yes, ma'am.
question here is, was the conduct of a study through a phenomenological study the most practical and reasonable procedure to gather the data necessary to develop the guide?
Yes, ma'am. I think, in my opinion, ma'am, a phenomenological study is one of the best strategies for me to be able to comprehensively develop the guide because the researcher himself would be able to see the real realities, the experiences of teachers. So I would not have been able to develop the life skills guide if I'm not able to if I was not exposed to the experiences of teachers, if I was not able to listen to them, if I was not able to join with their interactions, because I think these experiences of mine, the immersion with the key informants, is very necessary for me to be able to develop the life skills guide, because I can already relate what they are talking about, and I can already address their concerns that they have expressed during our interaction.
Yes, that is noted, but I also would like to mention that if a researcher would use a case study using participant observation, which will probably last for at least 6 months to 1 year for data gathering alone, or ethnography that will require at least
Yes.
1 year of immersion or living with the people, would it not elicit the same data that a researcher might probably need to develop a guide?
I think, Mom, there will be a difference on the data that will be gathered, because ethnography may focus on the culture, and there are differences in terms of data, and of course might be different in focus. So um, the life skills guide may also change. It depends on the methods that's being used by the researcher, ma'am.
Okay, I'll take that. But just recently, when I attended the Philippine Social Science Council of the, for an ethnography training. So it's not simply about like the culture. For example, the lecturer from UP studied just one item, but were able to explore different concepts, thoughts, and ideas affecting the lives of Balikbayan. So what was studied, for example, was only a Balikbayan box for 1 year. So like in a teacher, for example, we can study some objects or materials. That's a starting point, but we can also realize the many different needs and the many different circumstances in the life of the teacher, just thinking out loud. I think for my last, in a purely qualitative study, the researcher may be allowed to have different titles for the different chapters, and more chapters than what is practically prescribed by the school or by the institution. I am wondering whether you were allowed to have like eight chapters or 9 chapters, not really following the regular procedure that we follow in dividing a manuscript into different chapters.
Thank you, Madam. I have actually followed, ma'am, the format of the university, and the panelists did not anymore. I mean, I did not anymore extended the chapters, because it would require a lot of it would require more time for me to be able to write. But to be able to come up with a comprehensive discussion, we just put it in the life skills guide by chapters already. That's why there is chapter 1 for pagtungo sa lugar, and so on and so forth, ma'am. Just to be able to follow.
I have to raise that because that should be allowed, because I think some of the faculty and panelists are around here and we are being recorded. In the previous trainings that we have conducted for the faculty of Region 5 under the CHED Zonal Research Center, we did have some trainers from top universities in the country, and they brought with us some samples of qualitative studies, and they did not follow the regular chapters usually prescribed, and that is so the trend for qualitative studies. So I hope that our institution can also consider something like that. Like
Yes.
if there is an idea that that the researcher thinks will warrant one separate chapter, it is worthy to have a separate chapter, then we can have a separate chapter for that, and the researcher may think of the title for it, not following the title prescribed for the quantitative type of studies.
Yes,
Just
ma'am.
one last, Sir Moderator. The critics of phenomenological studies talked about certain issues, one of which is about the conclusion. They think that there should be no conclusion for phenomenological studies because conclusions speak of finality and surety. And when we speak of the lived experiences and the meaning that the people themselves attach or give to the lived experiences, to their lived experiences, what is more appropriate would be issues and implications rather than conclusions. What is your take on this? Did you and your panelists explore this during the conduct of the study?
Yes, ma'am. Some issues actually, ma'am, have been considered as we crafted the paper. But since that we are still following the format of the university, we were not able to do what should be done for a phenomenological study. In fact, this study reached 500 pages, and the panelists requested that it should be shortened because we will be spending a lot of papers. And so we, in terms of the issues that should be part in the conclusions, instead, we just put it in the implications of the study as we discussed at chapter 4, so that it's integrated. The lens of a phenomenological study is really integrated in the paper, ma'am.
That is noted, but I really have to mention that because if you take a look at the paper, technically speaking, it is presented quantitatively, in a quantitative manner, because there is this tendency to follow the structure prescribed by the university. But in terms of procedure and intent, it is a phenomenological study. And it would be interesting and it would be worthy to consider what the experts in the field are saying, that is, instead of saying conclusion and then having a final answer for each of the statement of the problem mentioned, issues and implications would be better. That would be all. Thank you, moderator.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ma'am Becky.
Okay, thank you very much to our panel of evaluators. Ma'am Di Alban, Prof. Cortez, and Prof. Bercasio. And we also would like to thank all the 3 presenters that we have this afternoon. I hope that we have a very fruitful discussion when it comes to the different researches that has been presented. And just to give a disclaimer for tomorrow's event, the same format will not actually be followed. We will be more strict tomorrow when it comes to the time allotment for the presentation as well as the question and answer portion. So we would like to inform our participants for tomorrow to always be conscious of your time presenting and answering questions. So apart from this, we will no longer have a next part for the activity. We will reserve all of this, all of that tomorrow. The presentation and also the announcement of the winners for the graduate level research and development paper presentation will also be presented tomorrow at the second day of this student R&D forum. So may I call in Prof. Giriba if she have any further announcements to make before we end today's meeting. Okay, I think Professor Juneda have some announcements to make. Yes. Hello, sir. Can you unmute
Okay,
na po ba
thank you.
Okay.
I can't unmute a while ago. So again, I would like to reiterate our thanks to our evaluators. Dear evaluators, Ma'am Tess from Chen, Ma'am Becky, the newest UNESCO awardee of Bicol University, Sir Carlos Cortez. And also we would like to thank the very for the very effective presentations and answering of the queries from the panelists to the researchers. Also for sticking it out the entire duration of the presentation, Dr. Herbert Rosana, the Dean of the Graduate School, and everybody that attended our Zoom proceedings, including those who participated on the Facebook live or mainstreaming, live streaming, I should say. While these people are presenting this masteral, these presenters are presenting, we were actually communicating with Dr. The Dean of the Graduate School, and we were noting about prospects of all these things. So we look forward for more fruitful engagements similar like this with the graduate students in the future. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow. It will be more exciting because there are lots of paper that will be pitted with each other. And then tomorrow as well will be the awarding of the best papers. There would be no closing yet this time because we still have an activity tomorrow, continuation of this. Mag-iringat po sa Gabos, mag-aranda kasi ang bagyo ay talagang tatamaan ang Piri-Piriñaan, Bicol, and just magbantay sa Gabos. Salamat.
Recording stopped.
Thank you.